Even most of those AI, it's not implemented with proper blockchain. If it is a blockchain, so then every it don't have any closed access. It is become an open access, right? So most of these company, they have a very secretive information, PII data, like other data on those on they stored those data. And if those data goes to the AI agent for training, that will be a privacy breach. So it will be a very high demand in upcoming days. Hello everyone, good morning. We joined little early. I think uh, 10 minutes early. So me and Celestia is doing little chit chat about the present job market. Uh, Mr. Karthik is going to join within next 1 or 2 minutes. Uh, Meanwhile, if you have any question, feel free to ask. We're supposed to start our DevOps cybersecurity batches this Friday, but unfortunately, our DSO08 batch is still going. So, and we had some issues with our website as well. So, it is most probably we are going to start from the next Friday, our DevOps batch and our cybersecurity DevSecOps batch. And that is a call I'm talking about, the job ready training, that 2 months classes. I think I do have few our alumni. Mr. Selassie, Chris is also here. Okulades is here. They have done some of our classes or most of our classes. Luis has had a interview, final round interview yesterday. I don't know what was the result. So let's see, I do have one more question for you while we are, waiting to start the session. Uh, what is the biggest chunk of or including your your present positions, DevSecOps or cybersecurity experts, which areas you are getting more question? Your DevOps area, cybersecurity, penetration testing, or DevSecOps area?
I'll say it's more cybersecurity.
The core cybersecurity, like OSAP, top 10, like those.
Yes. And then pen testing, um, a little bit of the scanning, Nexus type questions, scanning, but majority of it is more of what you call it, the OSAP and OSAP and pen testing. It's
Did
more
you
more
ever,
of those questions.
okay, did you ever faced any question regarding container security or API security?
No, not yet.
But
But
so let's
yeah,
here one cool stuff. Okay,
yeah,
the cybersecurity DevSecOps is very newer field. Okay,
yeah,
even if they are not asking, but I will suggest you need to drive to your strong forte where those are very unique skill like container security and API security. If you are confident on those, okay,
yeah,
because 80% of time you will find the interviewer they will also not have a holistic, they will may have a holistic idea but not a technical level idea about those.
yeah.
So even if they are not asking, bring that and point the elephant on the room that okay,
Okay,
I do have these kind of things. What you are asking about cybersecurity, forget about cybersecurity core components. I do have a specialist skill set on container security,
security. Okay,
API
okay,
security, and cloud security. But make sure you will face some one or two cross question on that, and you should be prepared.
okay,
But once if you so there are two ways you can lead your interview. Once you follow your interviewer, or you'll or let interviewer follow you. The second option is always good
okay.
because in that way you will find that they have a more eagerness to hire you because they have, and the same time you also need to bring some of your DevOps skill set even they are not asking, because you do have a unique skills of DevOps and cybersecurity. Even they are only asking about cybersecurity every time with a question while I am setting up my CI/CD pipeline, while I am like with those preface you should tell about those answer. In that way you will bring those interviewer to in your court or you can play better.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Karthik is joining within 1 or 2 minutes. Feel free to ask anything if you are right now.
Yeah, I'm already
Oh,
connected.
okay.
Actually, I was wondering like what Celeste was asking. So what's
No,
so
I
if,
I was asking about the job interview, what kind of question he's right now facing because he's our and few of his final round call got postponed because of the job market. So we are discussing because he faced many good number of interviews last couple of months. All of them had a positive feedback, but none of them converted with the offer because many of them got postponed or hold because of the job market.
okay. Yeah, right now because of Trump traffic tariffs and things, things are quite not stable. So
Very bad. But
yeah,
good part is, I think after World War II, the last Wednesday, stock market was jump the highest, second highest last, I think, after World War II. So that is a good sign.
Okay.
Now, after next day, the market again collapse, and that is a kind of bull trap. And yesterday's market again was a good green. So next 1.5 month, based on how many this trade deal happen, market will be good. If again, I don't know, news is popping like every now and then towards today towards north, tomorrow towards south. So it is very hard to predict and today in today's
Mm.
scenario. But if you
Okay. Okay.
try to draw a tangent, we can understand that maybe the next 1.5 months or maybe 2 months, that will be a green zone for a job. Let's see.
Yeah. Hopefully. Let's see. Actually. But it would be a good time to prepare and keep ready for the job market as well.
Yes.
Right? Rather than waiting for it to get ready and then prepare, it would be a good time to prepare because you'll have time to prepare and you'll have a lot of things. You can go much more deeper. So you'll have better success rate. And when the job market becomes available, I think probably they'll be in a hurry to hire. So you'll be ready for that. So you'll be able to clear in first lot.
Yes.
That's it.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Karthik, I think you can start. I am not going to, take any more time.
Just give me 2 minutes. I'll start.
Okay.
Is the session started recording?
Let me check. I don't know. I don't think so.
It's not it. It's not started. It's started. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. So welcome to one more session in DevSecOps internship program. So before we could move forward, I just like to ask, is anyone is having any questions from the previous session or do have any questions related to the uh, program that we are running DevSecOps complete paid process out there, right? So let me know if you have any questions. We'll discuss it and then move on to the current today's topic out there. So no one is having any questions. So we'll do one thing. We'll continue. Start with the today's topic. Today's topic is we are going to talk about cloud security and probably a little bit of other things as well in the cloud security component out there, right? We have seen, right, the journey, how we have gone into this internship program. We have started the internship program in predominantly with the security awareness.
Hello.
We have four major, yes?
Sorry, I think I was
Yeah.
supposed to. Good morning. from here. I was supposed to chat you privately, but maybe I could do that later on. So, but I wanted to ask if you could prep me for AWS certified as security specialty exam.
Can you check with Menon for that? I think probably he'll be able to help you out with that part.
Sorry?
Right. So you can check with Menon. Menon, can you work with him?
Yeah.
On that? Yeah.
So Chris, do you have our WhatsApp group link?
Yes, I'm on the WhatsApp group link. Hold on. Okay, let me chat you
In the
hold
WhatsApp?
on.
You just
Okay.
put hi, and I will message you.
Okay, I should just say hi, right?
Mhm.
Hold on. Okay. Hi.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you.
Most
You're
welcome.
Then please just check it out. Why is that you want to go with AWS? There's also Azure security specialist also, a role is also available. Do that and look from your profile perspective and which certification makes more relevance for you, right? So you may be thinking that in the industry, a lot of people are asking security, AWS security, but you may get up in higher package looking at a different security, which is more relevant in cybersecurity. I mean to say, right? So that would be a better goal, looking at your career trajectory before deciding your certification.
And maybe we can discuss last 5-10 minutes about the about Chris question regarding the certificates. I know
Yes,
we have covered these things in our day 2 session, but still
correct.
we can
You can
talk
still go
about.
through it. Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah. So please remind me, man, just before that's
Yes,
fine. That's
yes,
fine.
yes.
I will discuss about that. Yeah. Sorry about that. So let's start. Today we're going to talk about introduction to cloud computing and more predominantly security in cloud computing. All right. So before, let's look at our journey in this internship program. Right. Predominantly, this internship program or webinars has been divided into 4 weeks. That is the main core content available out there. Along with that, every alternative weeks, we do have a practical session out there where we talk about what is happening, what are the real-time practices and things like that, right? For instance, in the week one, we spoke about security awareness, where we introduce, because a lot of candidates or people who are coming to the seminar out here will not be aware about security. So making them dip their toes in the security, understanding what is a vulnerability, what is a threat, and how do we focus on all those things were discussed during this process of during the first week. In the subsequent weeks, we've spoken about what is cybersecurity certifications, what is a firewall, and what do network scanning, and a lot of other things, right? Second main week, we focused on penetration testing and infrastructure security. And you could see the second, third, and fourth weeks are more predominantly based on job profiles, right? In the second week, we spoke about what are the job roles of a penetration tester, how do they do the infrastructure scanning, what are different types of scanners, how to scan, all those things we saw. And we went in a practical and deeper approach when we spoke about Nmap, right? We saw how Nmap actually breaks down, so identify ports, and how we're finding getting information, which is a vulnerability scenario out there that we saw. And in the next, we talk about DevSecOps, right? Where we thought we look at that, why DevOps was not sufficient, how security makes the process, better, and rather than what do you mean by shift left approach, right? Why do it is a waste of time, it is making the system more vulnerable when we are delaying the security, integrating security into the application, right? Predominantly, we saw in an older process, the security or the penetration testing was done after the application was developed. And we saw what are the advantages of having security like threat modeling, code review, DAS and SCS scans and everything out there at an earlier stages. So we looked into that. We saw how could be done out there. And today we're going to talk about cloud security, right? So cloud security plays a major role. Yeah. So one of the main things is that it is most of the organization are running their underlying infrastructure in cloud itself, right? So, but what do you mean by cloud? What do you mean by cloud? So they're telling AWS cloud, Azure cloud, and we talk about that. What do you mean by this process? So the simplest term we can tell, in simple term, is someone else's computer, right? It is someone else's computer out there. There's nothing much, right? In the simplest way we can tell, let's say I'm having a powerful server at my home, and one of my friends tells me that he wants to run some program. His laptop is not able to handle that process. He'll tell, can I use your server for a couple of hours? And you can run the program in there. And after he runs the program, he gets the output for that. He stops using it. But for a couple of hours, let's say 3 to 4 hours, I'm going to charge him $50 per hour out there, right? Based because mine is a very powerful computer out there that I'm going to use. That is a simple way of telling it's a cloud computer, right? That's there. But when we're talking about an enterprise level, when we're talking about AWS, when we're talking about GCP, and we're talking about Azure, there a lot more technology is needed out there. It is much more complicated, right? Because we are not just giving the computing to one single entity, right? That's how cloud computing started. NASA wanted to run some kind of an analytics, and the AWS was there because they wanted to run Amazon analytics and things for that. And they use most of the computing only during the peak, that is only in the Christmas time, and other times, non-festival time, people are not buying a lot of stuff. So it was lying around, so they gave it to NASA for doing analytics out there, because it saved NASA a lot of money, because if they had to do it, it is a huge computation, right? So they had to do it. They had to set up their own server farm and things, and it would delay the analytics also because they have to wait for the server to do that. And they reached out and they was able to done it, right? I think same thing also happened with some other company. Uh, they paid in the credit card to get a huge amount of work to be done and a lot of things with them, right? In one scenario, it would have costed a company do analytics 40 days. They were able to push it in the cloud and they got it the analytics done in 40 minutes out there. So that is the advantage of it, right? No upfront costs and things and all that is there. But it is a lot of security attack vector is going to increase, right? If I'm having a single server, the attack vector is going to be only from a web application perspective. If I'm allowing my mobile app to communicate with that server, now attack vector has increased because now apart from the browser, someone can use the mobile also to attack that particular application. Similarly, when you take the traditional on-prem servers and put it to a cloud environment, the attack vector is also going to go out there, right? As you could see, the definition of cloud computing from NIST. Cloud computing is a model of enabling ubiquitous, convenient, on-demand network access to shared pool of configurable computing resources. This is important. Shared pool, meaning there's a large pool of computing resource. They can take that resource and use it. And this resource is configurable computer resources, right? They can change it according to their requirement. So this could be network, server, storage, applications, and services that can be rapidly provisioned and released with a minimal management effort or service provider interaction. So for instance, to tell a simple example, how much time will it take for you to create an EC2 instance? Probably 5 minutes, right? And it will be available, right? It is with minimum effort. I can have a public access application server running in some cases, matter of seconds. If you don't know what you're doing, it can be up in matter of seconds and anyone in the world will be able to access it out. But if you're doing it on the same on-prem, meaning you're bringing a physical server into your computer office network, what are the things have to be there, right? You have to do a lot of things. You have to, first of all, your company needs to have a dedicated, internet connection, meaning a public IP has to be assigned to your office. That IP address assigned has to be connected to a server. For that server, I need to provision, I need to buy that server out there, either in a different parts or completely assembled, and that has to become inside. Then I have to install the operating system in that, then all the supporting software, set up the firewall rules, and all those things is going to take a lot of time, right? And the cost is also going to be very high for you. Getting your own public IP address, getting your own direct link to the internet, all those things are very expensive and it takes a lot of time as well, right? So that is the main advantage of that's the minimal effort. I can rapidly provision it, right? So that is the main thing. It is open out there with very little interaction, right? Service provider, even the Amazon does not have to help you unless until you're getting stuck somewhere. You don't need a AWS support as well for running it. If you know what are the buttons to click, you should have the instances running out there. But here, my question is going to be there, right? So for instance, let's assume I'm having a physical server in my office. This is a physical server out there. So now for security, for this, right? For security, I'm going to place a guard for physically securing it. Then I'm going to do disk encryption, right? I'm going to install a firewall. I'm going to do all access management for that. Right? All these things is going to be done by me and completely 100% who is responsible. I am responsible. But when it is on-prem meaning on premises, on the premises of the office, there's a physical server. I'm responsible for it, even from the networking perspective, right? Getting IP address and checking out all those things is my responsibility out there. But if you take the same server, you go to AWS cloud, right? You go to AWS cloud and you're running the exact same server instance, meaning the OS is exactly same. I'm running Ubuntu out here. I'm running all the application. Let's say I'm running Apache. I'm putting the code from here also I'm putting in GitHub and the same code is going to be put here as well. Now, who is responsible for the security? Because I'm not having in my premises, I'm putting it in the cloud. Is AWS responsible for the security or is I am responsible for that? Because I still am configuring this. So who is responsible for what security out there? But what do you think? Right? It's a big question we have to ask out there because when you are providing, because when you're going to go into an organization, you're going to go in as a DevSecOps engineer or cloud security engineer. You are supposed to provide security for things you are responsible for, and you are supposed to ask security for things AWS or any cloud provider is responsible for that. But how are we going to go about deciding who is responsible for what? For this to understand, we need to understand what are the different types of cloud provisioning out there. One is called as IaaS, infrastructure as service, platform as a service, and software as a service. SaaS is there, right? This is going to be there. So what is the difference between the three? I might ask you one more thing, Ratsan. When you have EC2 instance, so here infrastructure is given to the client. Your platform is given to the client. Here the software is given to the client. So for instance, you may be an organization, they are completely dependent on Gmail or G Suite, right? G Suite or the meaning you're using Google Drive, Google Docs, then Google Worksheets for doing your all, storing your Word documents, Excel sheet and everything using Google out there. So here this is going to be taken as a software because I don't know what is the underlying operating system. I don't know underlying software that is everything is going to be there. Only thing I know is the product. That is my Google Suite out there. That's there. And I can only configure products on this, meaning I don't have any control over anything. Only the application which I'm using, that is the one I'm going to focus on that part. Right. So my question is, when you create an EC2 instance, here you're deciding what operating system you're going to use. You're telling what CPU you're supposed to use. What is the RAM size you're supposed to use? Will this come under infrastructure as a service or will it come under platform as a service?
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure. So how many of you think this is going to be an infrastructure as a service? Right? This is not going to be an infrastructure as a service. This will be a platform as a service. Right? So what do you mean by infrastructure as a service? Simple way, if you look at things, let's say this is predominantly a server farm, and you could see each and every rack here is having a separate server, physical server out here, right? Each and every rack here is having a physical server out here, and there could be hundreds and hundreds of rows like this in a particular server out there. So there could be thousands or even almost 100,000, more than that, systems in a single server farm. Entire thing is going to be more secure than any of the military bases. You need to have your proper biometric scan completed, background verified for military level clearance for someone to be able to access or given access into this server farms out here. That is how big the security is going to be. And they spend billions of dollars on this as well, right? In some example, Google was able to reduce the AC temperatures in this server from increase from 12 to 15 degrees, right? So they require less AC electricity to keep it at 15 degrees. They'll need more AC. I think they saved around $2 billion just because of that. So that is how costly it is running this servers. Server farms is going to be for everyone. Right. So now you could see those rack servers, right? Inside these rack servers, they will have very powerful processors. So for instance, let's say if you're going to something like an AMD EPIC processor, it costs around $10,000. I don't know, it will be more than that. And there will be two processors in each of it. And certain times the RAM can go up to 1 terabyte of RAM in some cases. I have seen 512 GB RAM in single systems out there. And again, hard drive can be, you would see in the front of it, there will be swappable hard drives as well, which I can run up. It can go up to very lot. Even if you're having about 4 TB of in a single hard drive, the 10 hard drives, you can easily go up to 40 terabytes of storage. This particular server is going to be divided into many virtual machines. Many virtual machines. As if you have been working with us, DevSecOps, you might have seen we have created VMware workstation, where I'm taking my laptop and dividing into multiple virtual machines like this you are going to see, right? Like this you're going to see out here. When you have access to a single VM itself, right? You don't have access to the server here. You have access to the VM that comes as platform as a service. Okay, so I can tell while configuring for each VM, let's say I want to create a new VM here, new virtual machine. I can tell, one second. I can customize the hardware that is going to be out here. I can tell I can give 4 GB of RAM. I have a 32 GB laptop, so I can give 4 GB of RAM dedicated to this virtual machine, 2 cores of processors, right? There's a hard drive, there's a network adapter, there's a display, and everything can be given out here, right? This information can be given to that. I'm not going to create one, but this is how what we are going to talk about that, right? So this particular resource, whatever we're talking about here, can be divided into many VMs, and when we give it to a single VM, that is where the platform as a service is going to be. When you create your EC2 instance, this is what you are supposed to try out. It's a very rare case that you're going to use infrastructure as a service. You have to be, and a very large enterprise who go focus on infrastructure as a service, right? I've seen it in real time. So in one of the cases, I was, had been to a data center, very high profile. There's always someone, along with to check whether what you're doing is right or wrong and things. So there we saw one of my clients who I was doing the security testing. There are about this is a very large building. It is having about 10 floors. In that 8 floors are set aside for the servers. And I've been around that building for 10 years. I never knew that was in data center out there. But finally, when I saw that the client that I was working on Out of this, so many 100,000, thousands and thousands of servers, they had been assigned a complete rack row out there, right? All the devices or servers that are there in that particular, it is belonging to them. That is infrastructure as a service. Complete hard drive, hardware is going to be given access for them. Okay. And the network is going to be, they will have a dedicated router, they will have a dedicated firewall and everything. That is what is going to be there, right? So why this is important is to know the difference. In platform as a service, we have more control. And there's a 50-50, right? Cloud provider is also having control. It is the infrastructure as a service. Client is having more control. Cloud client is having more control because here they're just giving the physical, land perspective. You can tell office space or the servers are going to be managed by the client itself. Whereas in software as a service, there's a minimum access for client and majority is taken care by the cloud provider itself. So now where the cloud, who is responsible for what activity out here? You have to think from that perspective, right? That is how the process is going to be. Right. So let's look at this. I think someone's video is there. Can you please switch off your video? So as we saw here, who is responsible? Infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. All right. So in the infrastructure, mostly customer is responsible for security, and software as a service, mostly provider is responsible for security. Let's go a little bit deeper into that. Right. When it's going to be on premises, everything is going to be taken care by the cloud customer itself. Complete physical security. Physical security, a lot of people think when we talk about cyber security, it basically deals about access information, who can access a website and things like that. It is also relevant to the physical security as well. What if someone walks into your office and takes someone's laptop, manager laptop, and walk out? They can lose data in that because manager laptop will have a lot of information out there, right? It can also, there are some cases where people have robbed a IT company and took the hard drives out of the server, right? If they had not encrypted the hard drive, the data is lost, not right? And the network control is also going to be there. What is the firewall? What is the rule set in the firewall? All those things is going to be processed of them, right? And application level control, identity and access management, right? Both of them basically what kind of an application configurations we can do, who can access that application, identity and access management, who is an admin user, who is a non-admin user, what are the things that is going to be provided, all those things is going to be taken into that consideration of them, right? Client and endpoint protection. This is basically from a desktop perspective. Here, who is responsible for what, right? So you may be accessing Citrix and things like that. So who is supposed to give the protection at that level, right? So you're having a VPN. So there is some kind of an provider is also provide some information out there. If you're connecting to your cloud via your desktop or a laptop, some kind of a security mechanism at the client end, at the endpoint is also supposed to be there. That has to be given out there as well, right? Data classification and accountability is basically telling what data is important and that. So for instance, let's say client credit card information is there. Okay. Then again, visitor information is there, right? It's somewhere like 30 people visited the organization on that day. We got some basic information about their name, address, and phone number, all those things, and credit card information. So which is an important data, which is a non-important data, less important data. Credit card information is a critical data, whereas the visitor info is less critical data. right? So this is classification is important because we have to tell where I have to give more security and where I have to give less security for storing of that. Right? In a simple way, if you can think, let's say you're having gold, you're going to keep it in an iron safe. And let's say if you're having chocolate, you're going to keep it in your refrigerator, right? In your refrigerator, you're going to keep it out there. Why? This is really overkill for saving your chocolates, and unless until the really expensive chocolates. Okay, so that is the process. And accountability is basically checking out, you're having logs of who is accessing what data. All right, and especially for modification, more than access is also important, right? We also have to see modification also. Modification basically means adding data, change the data, and delete the data. So we should be able to log who added to a particular record, who created a new record, who deleted a record. All those things has to be done on that. This particular information will always be cloud consumers' responsibility, right? Because you will be the one who can tell whether the data is important or not data important. Your AWS provider will not be able to do that part. So that is always going to be the cloud provider's responsibility out there. But other things, if you go, right, if you go client and endpoint protection, infrastructure as a service, the cloud consumer is responsible. In platform also, it is going to be that. Only from a software as a service that changes out there, right? For instance, you think you're using Teams, right? You're using Teams out there. Who is supposed to be provide the secure communication channel from your Teams to this Teams server, which is there in Microsoft accounts server as your environment, right? Who's responsible? You are also responsible to keep your endpoint, do antivirus installation, make sure you're locking your computer when you're going out. All those things has to be done. But the authentication process there, it's your responsibility, right? Whereas if you're running an EC2 instance, when I'm running an EC2 instance, it is your responsibility, right? Both platform as a service, it is your responsibility that uses secure communication out, because that is what is setting a password policy is your responsibility. Whereas software as a service, Teams or Gmail, you're going to use, there is a minimum password policy is going to be there. So it is not going to be your responsibility of that. Identity as access management, same. Some amount of work is going to be taken care by the server. Whereas the infrastructure as a service, everything is going to be done by you. Okay. What happens? I'll tell you one more thing. When you go EC2 instance or platform as a service, your cloud provider will have some amount of rights on the VM that you're running or the instance of, server that you're running on that. They will be able to access it and check for some basic things. They will not do data access and things, but still they can do some scans and know what is the health of that particular VM. On all those things can be done by them. If when you go to infrastructure as a service, nothing is that is going to happen. So all that process has to be done by you itself. Okay, and application level control also is going to be done by you. In platform as a service, you don't have much control. You still have access over the operating system out there, right? But you don't have the virtualization control over that part. You're able to tell which operating system you can use, but what is the underlying virtualization hypervisor tool that is going to be used, that you don't have access for that, right? Same thing for SaaS as well, software as a service. But it is the infrastructure where you'll have complete control over it. That is what is going to be there. When it comes to network control, the cloud provider is going to be fully responsible, right? And it is, even though infrastructure as a service, they're telling cloud provider, consumer is also responsible, it will be very limited out there. Because if you have a server farm where there are thousands of that data, how the data reaches to this location is going to be dictated by the provider itself, right? So that is there. In some cases where infrastructure as a service, I can decide which region I'm going to be allowing and connecting for that part. There it's going to be important out there for us. Host infrastructure, as I told, where it is running. Like in this case, if I'm looking from a virtual machine, host infrastructure is my laptop. There they will have many different applications, right? You might have seen Oracle OpenShift and ESXi from VMware and a lot of other things are there. So that is going to be taken care. And physical security is always going to be cloud providers if you're running things on that part, right? So no one should be able to get inside the server farm and take server and get out. That is not going to happen at all. It will be so tightly managed, right? Let's say you are running a hard drive in those servers and it failed. They will copy your data to a different hard drive. But the hard drive that is failed, that cannot be thrown into a garbage. They have to properly remove all the data. Probably if it is a magnetic hard drive, they will put it in a place in a magnetic process out there to remove, make it unable to remove any data in that part. So that is how things are going to be. And probably they will, in some cases, they will burn that equipment as well, right? So we have to take care of all those components out there. Okay, so that is very important. So this is once we understand, because we always, whenever we're providing security, we should be able to segregate as many minute components as possible. So at that time, when we were able to see, let's say I'm having an organization where I'm running a development team. There are 3 servers out there. 2 servers is left for testing and 1 is for production. Right? What is my priority out there? Right? My main priority example, because I know there are 3 devices and 2 is for testing and 1 is for production. I'll put my first priority for securing is the production environment. Why? All my important data is going to be there. Right? Second priority is going to be giving it to the client side testing server, and finally it's going to be the development side testing server. There are a lot of things that is going to be there. There has to be criteria what has to be taken first in for that part, right? Always think from an organization perspective, think from a design perspective, what are the different components? Don't look from a tool perspective. Tools will change depending on the organization. The process is not going to change, right? For instance, if you know how to ride a bike, right? If you know how to ride a motorcycle, going from a 100cc motorcycle to going to a 1000cc motorcycle, the basics of it is not going to change, right? And the way you're managing, where you're handling is going to remain the same. Only thing that is going to change is how and what speed you're doing, what is the level of expertise required out there. Right? In a similar way, here also, when we are looking from an operations perspective, security or DevOps, always look from a process perspective, what has to be done, how to do certain activities, right? What is the security classification we have to do, which is more important data, all those things has to be done. You will always have tools to help you out, and the tools keep on changing. So don't depend on a tool for doing an activity. Understand from an architectural perspective. I think someone's microphone is on. Yeah. So, but how do we go about this? Right? What are the first line of defense that you're going to do? Right? First line of defense in any is going to be the security group. Right? In especially this could have a different meaning, different name in AWS, Azure or a GCP, but underlining functionality is going to remain the same thing, right? So in technically speaking, if you have a virtual firewall, is going to be there. It is going to control all incoming and outgoing traffic, both inbound and outbound rules, right? So secure cloud environment by controlling how traffic is allowed into the EC2 machine, where the security groups ensure that all traffic that flows to instance level is only through a established ports and protocol. So here, when you have a server out there, right? Let's say there's an SSH services available on that server where an administrator is able to connect to that machine, right? So I can tell that, make sure allow an administrator to log into that server using SSH protocol only when they are connecting from a particular IP address or a particular IP address range, right? This could be hard coded telling that if the person administrator has to be in the office location, wherever in the world it is, that office will have a dedicated IP address. And only when he's connecting from this office space, he'll be able to connect to the cloud devices and control them, and we can also specify what port numbers are going to be accessible, where it can be managed, what kind of application services can be allowed and things like that. So we can tell that anyone in the world will be able to access the application website on port number 443, right? 443 is HTTPS. But no one in the world, even though they have access on that every exact machine to access the website, but they should not have access to the SSL service of them. So that can be controlled using security groups out there. It has much more stringent way of telling. We can have different security groups in different network flows and tell this network is not allowed to work and this network is allowed to work in a similar way. Yes, Carmen.
Yeah, a quick request. Mr. Beniam, can you please turn off your camera? So what will happen? It will help us to edit the uh, while we are going to share the video in the group. It will help us to edit those videos. Thank. Uh, no, your camera is still on. Yeah, Mr. Karthik, you can proceed.
Yes.
He will figure it out and he will stop.
Yes,
Thank you.
sir. No. So you might be seeing here, right? If you're someone who is working on a cloud level security, you need to have some amount of networking understanding, right? Understand one key features. If you see in our main courses, we do give a lot of emphasis on the Linux part, especially when we're coming from DevOps. The basics are worked on DevOps and the classes out there. And when we come to cybersecurity, we work on some advanced topics in Linux. What are the services? How do you manage? And all those activities are going to be done out there as well. Because it is going to help you out with that, because you will be interacting with that part. We'll also talk about access management from a Linux perspective. So it will help you better manage your instances out there, right? So that is going to be there. So that is also very important. And one more thing, next component here is management plane, right? The management plane is the single most significant security difference between traditional infrastructure and cloud computing. This isn't at all a metastructure, but is interface to connect to the metastructure and configure much of the cloud. Thus, gaining access to the management plane is unfettered access to the data center. Cloud providers, including private cloud providers, must provide highest level of availability and mechanism for consumers or users to manage aspect of their own availability. Right. So basically, what do you mean from this component? So for instance, let's say if you're running any Azure services out there, you're running your application on Azure infrastructure. What is going to happen? You can log into the Azure via browser. And when you log into that, so let's say you will have some kind of a process out there where you will be able to manage what is the services that you can have access to, right? So if you see something like this, that should be. Just give me a minute. Let it load. Right. So you could see here, I will have access to all the different services out there. I can work on my subscription. I can create my own DevOps pipeline out there. I can create my own instance and I can do a lot of the actions out there. So this is what predominantly a management plane is going to be there. Let's say if someone can gain access into this management plane, they can do a significant damage. They can change configurations of all my instances that are there. They can disable firewall, they can copy data. They will have a complete access to the network, right? So that is why when providing access to this, it is very much important. Not everyone should have access to this management plane, and the control who's having access to this should be strictly maintained, right? That strong perimeter security, then we have to make sure that it is using strong authentication. There should be multi-factor authentication. We should have different administrators for doing different activities. We can have multiple administrators, but we can tell certain components can only be managed by this certain administrator. Some other components can be going to be managed by other administrator. And on top of that, there's going to be super administrator who is able to manage everything else going to be there, right? So it is very, very critical for us the way we manage this component, right? In some cases, when we are pen testing for a particular client, we wanted to do the infrastructure scan and they told you cannot do it, right? Whether because the way we have set up the network, you have to come to our office itself. It is there in the cloud environment, and the server cloud AWS service is not, I think they were running GCP. That was not running in India also, right? It was running in the US environment of them. But they told you cannot run it from your office. You have to come to our location and work in, because the services are, tied up to the current network. So you cannot connect to the management plane, look at the configurations of the services and things if you're connecting from a different environment. So that is, even the administrator will not be able to do work from home for that, right? So those things are important out there. Management plane probably the biggest, if you compromise, that is going to be if you can get a super administrator password or enable to bypass authentication for a super administrator in a cloud environment in a management access. It, because you will have complete access. You can delete the data. You can make sure that organization does not exist in a fraction of minutes, right? In a matter of minutes, you can do that part. Why? You can just go and delete everything there, unless until they have an offline backup, everything will be gone. Okay, so that is how difficult, important management planes. So then we talk about from an infrastructure security aspect, right? Infrastructure security, a lot of things are going to be there, right? Let's say you're connecting to apple.com or you're connecting to google.com. Do you think you're directly connecting to the actual server where that particular website is hosted? Right? So that may not be the case, right? There could be a lot of things in middle. There could be a firewall, there could be a load balancer, there could be a WAF, there could be an antivirus software, there could be a lot of other things that are there, right? That's going to decide what is going to be done out there. And securing is important out there, right? So fundamental resource pool together to create cloud. This is the raw physical network and storage to build cloud resources. For example, include security of networking hardware, software used to create the network's resource pool. Virtual infrastructure managed by cloud here, that computer networks and storage assets they use from resource pool. For example, security of virtual networks as defined by the cloud user, right? Implement and deny cloud firewall should be there. Disable remote access, integrate security into image creation. There are multiple things that you have to consider here. Okay. For instance, whenever you create an EC2 instance, it is based on a particular image. If that image is having a vulnerable code, the image instance created will also have the same vulnerability out there. So managing that image security is also very important. Cloud firewall will come in two parts. One is the network level firewall. You can have Palo Alto set up out there. And we also have seen, Cloudflare WAF that is going to be predominantly used, and that works at a cloud level. So we look at all the application layer security, and monitoring is one of the main things, right? Patch management is also very key, depending on whether how much control you have over the instances. The patch management can be managed by the provider itself. When you have a much more granular access, patch management is your responsibility. So what do you mean by patch management? So let's say there may be some kind of a software or operating system that are there. it may be having a vulnerability. So we have to install that one, patches for that vulnerability so that that cannot be used for hacking into the application, right? Then again, store logs external to workload, right? Every time you access a website, there's actually a log generated on that website telling your IP address, establish a connection with the server, and this is the request that is requested out there, right? The response may not be stored out there, but the request is always logged in certain component of that. So they'll always know who connected to the website at what time, right? But these logs should not be in the same network. It should be, periodically captured and stored in a different location, right? If you're looking at from an AWS perspective, you are going to take this log periodically from the live location and push it to the archives, because archive cold storage, because it is going to cost them less of that, right? The data retrieval is going to delay, but these logs may not be used for a day-to-day activity. There may be compliance requirement telling that you need to store the log information for 3 years, then you have to store it in some location. So that is the. Then again, you're talking about what is the firewall policies and who is having access. All those scenarios out here. It's very, very crucial, right? It becomes, it is a very important from an infrastructure perspective. But your security does not stop out there, right? As I told, you have to think about all the different components that are there that make up an application, right? If you take in a simple way, if you take in a simplest way, let's say I'm looking from an on-prem server perspective. What is required? I need a physical server, right? This is called as a hosting application, hosting server, where this is going to have an operating system out there. On top of operating system, I'm supposed to install an application server. This is basically your Tomcat. If you're having a Java application, PHP, it is going to be Apache, you'll have Nginx and something like that, right? Along with that, you will need other softwares that are required out there, and you're going to require the code as well out there, and the access control for the application, right? Who is having access to what information? Everything is going to be given out there, and each level I'm supposed to provide security out here, correct? That is going to be there. When you talk about infrastructure, we are usually talking about server and the app level, that is the port number and network level of the TCP and IP we're talking about it. So that's going to be, but at the application things will change, because here is where your web application WAF comes into play. But your WAF cannot do anything if there isn't control issues with access control. So a lot of other things you have to take into consideration, right? Whenever you're talking about API predominantly talks about web application security, right? The main thing, one of the important concepts we learn in our main course in DevSecOps is how does an application can be hacked using the web application part. The API is going to be the backbone of it, right? Every request sent from the browser is actually getting serviced by the server, and either that may be a normal web application request or API request, right? That has to be taken into consideration of that. So what do you mean by an API? Technically speaking, what do you mean by an API? A lot of people will tell application programming interface is absolutely right. To be specific, when your application, this is called as a web API. Okay, APIs are basically two programs are communicating with each other. And when two servers are communicating, HTML is not required. Why? HTML is basically used for make the application look better for us. But application server to server communication, that is not going to happen. In real time, if you can see, you see the timeline in my laptop, it is showing 8:04 p.m. where it is getting this. The time API here is interacting with my motherboard time API, and it's getting what is the exact time out there. Or the OS will have a separate program for that. That is going to be there. Here, the process is between two different servers. But what are the things that we need to take care, right? So first and foremost, we have to see that, as we saw, Akamai is telling that 29% of web attacks are targeting API last 12 months in 2024. And it is going to go up only. Why? More and more people are worried about APIs nowadays. They're trying to, because the more you're moving towards DevOps, the more APIs are going to be used, right? Still, even though DevOps is widely used, even though DevSecOps is widely used, still large organizations, a lot of organizations, at some point of time, they're still looking at a traditional approach where they are not using Dockers or containers to run their services out there, right? And that is why we see when we are talking with our students who have completed the course or completing when they go for an interview, a lot of time our students are asked to come to the organization when if they are hired in the organization, they want us to get in and help them build that security team, right? So that is one of the things that we look at because both DevOps and both DevSecOps courses are focused from an architecture approach, from a design approach. We do help out with the tools, what can be done, but we also help about talk about why that particular tool is used and how it should be used. Rather than telling the process 1, 2, 3, 4, we'll see what in what order it has to be done and why it has to be done. Right. So in the API, so when you're talking about security, right? So let's say from a simple application point of view, right? When you're talking about inadequate authentication mechanism, meaning I'm using a weak password, right? I can tell the 4-character password can also be used for nothing for a user, or the mechanism tokens that is used for may not be strong enough. That is going to be lack of encryption. So the application is traveling over HTTP, meaning plain text. Anyone who is able to read that, capture that network traffic will be able to read the data. Improper session management, right? When two servers are communicating, server A should authenticate with server B, right? But this session should expire after 15 minutes, or let's say after 5 minutes idle time, this should expire out there, or something else is going to be needed to be done on that. If those kind of a session management is not done properly, that is going to be there, right? Insufficient input validation. This is basically, let's say, a very basic test when you do in an application, saying that it is having some vulnerability. It is a low level vulnerability, it's still a vulnerability. Let's say there's a text box and there's an update button, right? I can update whatever the information I've been out. In the text box, if I do exclamatory at symbol, hash, dollar, percentage, ampersand, star, open bracket. This is all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 0. No, I give shift and do this. And if I can store these special characters in my database, then it is an improper input validation. Why? If this is not validated, I can put a payload like XSS payload out here. Okay. So that is going to be there. So XSS payload will come in the web application security when we do the main course, right? So poor logging and monitoring, because whenever there's a service running out there, we have to see what is happening out there. The logs are going to be generated. We need some form of understanding who is making those requests out there. For instance, let me check one thing. Okay. What do you mean by a log? You mean to say, right? I'm running a virtual machine here where I'm running many different virtual machines, Ubuntu and things and all. So because in our main course, we do a lot of labs in that. So you can play around a lot in this. Okay, so let me install Apache server. I'm going to do a simple install, nothing much here. White in color. So by default, all the log activities in the Linux server, it is going to be there in var log folder. Under this, I'm looking at Apache 2 folder out there, right? And you could see there are 3 different files out here. And if I see cat access.log, so I want to see what is the content of this file. You see the content is empty out here. But let's say whenever someone access this particular website, I don't have any code out here. It will give me a default page that is an Apache Ubuntu page. It is going to show there. But here I access this particular website using my browser out here. So now if I go back to the access log file, you will see there is an entry out there telling that this particular website was accessed by IP address 127.0.1. Since I'm accessing it on my local machine, it is giving this. But if you access the same server from your IP system, your IP address will be there. The more number of times I'm accessing here, see, I'm putting refreshing every time. So I'm going to keep on accessing very long number of times. So each and everything is going to be there. I access here. I kept on refresh. So every time a request was sent from browser to the server out here, and this is there, right? We need to monitor this particular log information. Let's say someone is trying to attack you. There will be certain proof out there. Someone is trying to attack out there. And when we know, if we don't monitor these logs, it will not be able to identify that. So automation, API security, we need to check, right? So if they're not properly monitored, it is going to be there. Outdated and unwanted software, right? Whenever you saw, I just installed Apache, it is always going to install the latest version on that. Okay, you can see Apache, right? So it is having some syntax error. Okay, right, this is the version out here. I could see Apache 2.4.58 and bracket, it is having an Ubuntu. This is because original version of Apache 2.4.58 is having a vulnerability and Ubuntu have patched it, right? I don't have to worry about that. So it is secure, but Ubuntu has done that. So we should also aware of that, what is happening. Are the software that we use in an API is secure or not? It is important for us to look into that. Assume production parity during cloud conversions. Then we have to see when there is a cloud conversion, something is happening, we have to make that. Overly permissive access control, right? Who is having access for that? We need to check into that component as well, right? Who can access that? What actions can be performed by that? For instance, in some cases, there will be a database, okay? And there will be an API for connecting. One is going to be API for read, second API is going to be for write, and third API is going to be for delete out there. So now access control has to be done for each API. If this request is coming from there, it's only allowed to read. It cannot do modification out there, whereas the modification can be done by this itself. Whereas a write can have new added data out there and it can update the data, but it cannot delete the data. So we have to make sure these API have exactly that access. And if they try to do something else, they should not be able to do that action. Okay, it's very important from our perspective. This understanding of this will make it much more easier when you understand simple dynamics of a web application, right? Whenever you open a website, if you understand what's happening, what request is going from this location to the server and what communication is happening between one server to another server, if you're able to look at that data, that makes more sense. Okay. So lack of rate limiting. So meaning, let's say there's a API server and there's one client. Okay. If this server is sending normal requests like 4 to 5 requests, per minute, this is totally fine. But what if there are 1,000 requests coming in? The rate of messages is very high. So at that time, I should have some limiting mechanism. Let's say I'll tell if I get more than 10 requests per client in less than a minute, I will block this client out. Block the client. This has to be done out there, right? Or I will not process, I will not run out there. run the process. See, understand we have to look at that CPU perspective as well. CPU is that whenever some information is going to be, it is going to calculate something. This CPU is going to be there, even though it may be 0.1 or 0.01 or 0.2%. This is going to be calculation of that, and especially when you're having a very large people amount of people are connecting, like an Apple.com, Google.com, Spotify, Netflix. The CPU utilization is very important, right? If I can drop all unwanted packages out there, it still will take certain amount of CPU, but the calculation is not going to happen. So I will still be able to do this activity because the server will have a certain capacity. When it reaches beyond that capacity, what is going to happen? It is going to crash. So it is not always mandatory. The hacker has to steal your data. He can make sure your data is not accessible to the right people, and he can do the impact of that for you, right? So for instance, you WannaCry is nothing but a denial of service attack. Someone crashes my server on a very important day, right? Where a lot of people are connecting to my website to buy products. If my server goes down, they will not continue with my website. They will probably go to a different website and purchase the product out there. And I will have a huge financial loss. So rate limiting plays a very important role out here for us. So that is why API security, a lot of people will think API and web security are different. They are both same. The underlying principles are going to remain the same thing out there. Same attacks is possible on the APIs as well. A little bit of implementation changes is going to happen. But without knowing web application security, going at web API is going to be a little bit different. Okay, but there are certain things like access control and things that is going to be very, very important out there. So again, the next component here is third-party resources, right? Cloud computing adopting is increasingly rapid, and third party could mean different things from externally written code through open source libraries to SaaS product. Because a product or service is sum of all the other products service users, exploit can start become because of any component that is a single line of code integrated within the application. From malicious attacker, this means that can achieve their goal. They only need to look at the weakest link in the entry point. This weakest link can be small supplier to large businesses. For this, for us to understand, we need to know what is a third-party resource, right? We need to know a third-party resource out here. For us, third-party is a lot of things. It varies. Your underlying operating system is a third party. Because when you want to run an application, only thing that is going to be there is going, if you remember security awareness training we told it can your application, there are three places hackers can get into, right? One is the code that is written by the organization itself. You're responsible for this code. Any error vulnerabilities in this, you can make changes to the code and fix the vulnerability. Second thing is configuration issues out there where you have configured it could have allowed some hackers to get into your system. I can make it a better configuration. Both of this is going to be there in the client and client have access to this component. Okay. Now let's say here we saw, let's say there's a vulnerability in OS, that is Ubuntu is identified a new vulnerability. Or if I'm having an Apache server, you saw that Ubuntu had given a patch, meaning 2.4.58 was having a vulnerability in that part. So in this case, what can you do? I can't do anything here, right? Why? Because I don't have access to this code at all. I don't know how the vulnerability, I know there's a vulnerability. I will have a CVE number for that, but I don't know anything beyond that point, right? Only option for me here is to update or remove that particular package of them, right? Some cases it will not be because you cannot remove Ubuntu or Apache because your application will fail for that. So, but understanding, I'm giving an example as Ubuntu and Apache. That's a very bare, basic minimum. It will always be patched. Don't have to worry. Before that vulnerability is disclosed, there will be a patch available for that. Now, that is how good things are. But there will be a lot of small components that are there that may not have the same kind of a support out there for you, right? You may be using an editor, text editor in your server for configuring certain things, small component that could be used for a lot of activities, right? if that vulnerability is there, that can give an hacker an access to that part. Now it's very dangerous out there, right? If I know what's happening, it becomes much more easier for me to look into that part. So always make sure you are using the relevant software. Always check for patches and those things you have to manage. Insecure software development. In a cloud environment, insecure software development completely comes from the client itself, right? They are supposed to, the majority of the time, right? Where is this vulnerabilities? When I'm pen testing, I find vulnerabilities in the application. Who is responsible for this pen test vulnerabilities? Because we were able to compromise the data, we're able to capture information, we can able to identify users and things and all. We are able to compromise user information, authentication, authorization is compromised. Why is all this thing happening out? Even though third-party tools are there, amount of vulnerabilities they cause is very limited. Very rarely they will have any huge impact, right? So, shell shock is one of them that has a huge impact. That vulnerability was there in Linux for almost a decade. No one knew about it. But when that kind of vulnerability is very rare from third-party resources. If you know which tools you're using, if you're clever with that, you don't have to worry about that. But majority of vulnerabilities are introduced by the developers itself or the operations team by misconfiguring the applications, servers or services of that. So that is their insecure software development, because they're not looking at any vulnerabilities can be introduced here, right? They're not doing it intentionally, right? They're not doing it intentionally, but they're not aware about the security issues out there. So they focus on how to make the application better, how to make it run faster, use less resources and things like that. And that without their knowledge, they're using components out there. But this can be overcome, right? So one of the ways is that having CI/CD pipeline, using DevSecOps out there, and looking at different training of developers in web application. There was one client we were working on. We are testing them services for once in 3 months, and for an year 4 testing we did for them, right? PT or the penetration testing. There was a huge vulnerabilities every time, and the management was really not understanding. Karthik, you showed us this vulnerability, we fixed it, but how come there are new vulnerabilities? And we told them the developers are introducing new vulnerability whenever they're writing a new code out there. So even though the older one got fixed and this is happening, and they got really, and they told what is that we can do. We told let's train the developers for a week. We'll tell them what are the vulnerabilities are there and how to fix those things, right? And once they did that part, they went back and improved the software development cycle out there. They started looking at vulnerabilities at the design phase itself, and they were able to fix it, right? And next time when they came in, we could not find any vulnerabilities. And when pen testers can't find vulnerabilities, if we found very few, very low level, it is nothing critical from previous one, we have to give them more justification why there was no vulnerability out there, because it means that we have not done proper testing. We have to give justification. We had to give them all the logs, what are the attacks we tried and why this attack failed. And then the most difficult part for a pen tester, to give an appreciation for the development team for doing a very good work. It does not occur often, but it does occur, right? So because it's not, for us, it is a bit difficult. Our job is to find vulnerabilities. If we don't find, it is really difficult for us. Insecure software, development is same thing what we spoke about here. Sorry, there's a slight repetition. Encrypt data in both motion and in rest, right? This is crucial, right? This is crucial out here. Main reason is, right? Think about, I'll give you a simple example not from a cloud perspective. We'll come back to the cloud, right? Let's say the manager is moving around. So he has a lot of data in his laptop and he's gone out. Okay. If someone steals his laptop, maybe he's sitting in the Starbucks cafe taking coffee break and things, and he's working, someone steals his laptop, his entire data is going to be lost. Okay, the data on that laptop is more important than the laptop itself. Now, there is a specific reason why organizations, especially for managers or people who are in a higher profile, they give only two types of laptops. Either it's a ThinkPad, yes, X1 Carbon series usually, or there is a MacBook out there. Why? These two laptops will have built-in encryptions by default. There will be a separate encryption chips available in them where it will make the process much faster. Right? We can have encryption in a normal laptops also. For instance, I am having encryption, right? You can see the padlock. If you see in your Windows machine, you will not see this padlock because it is not encrypted by default, right? But if you are encrypted it, someone steals your laptop, the laptop is gone for sure, but the data is not lost. Okay. Similarly, your server's data should be encrypted, both at rest and both in motion. When you talk about the motion part, we're talking about when the data is moving from one system to another system, maybe from a browser to the server, or server to the browser, or from server to other server. That is important of that, right? And being rest is that when the data is in the hard drive. Because can you trust your cloud provider, your AWS, that they will not go through your data? Right? Have you seen your Gmail? The ads in your Gmail will change based on your, what is the data that is there in your Gmail, right? So I remember when I was there in university, at that time I had a lot of financial because I'm not earning. I have to depend on my parents for money and everything. I'm putting a mail out there, reaching out to people out there. I'm seeing a lot of ads related to the lending money process out there. Why? Because they are going through your data. They may not sit down and see what Karthik has done, but still analysis is happening out there. So if the same process gets encrypted, they will not be able to look at your data and still get information, not do that part, right? It is important. Even if your server gets hacked, right, you will not be losing the data. Even if your communication gets intercepted, the data is not disclosed because the communication is encrypted completely, right? That is why we tell whenever you're accessing, make sure any website you're accessing, the padlock symbol is out there. That is very much important for us. Okay, so make sure that is there, right? So before we go a little bit further, there are a few more topics we can talk. Any questions till now, guys? Any questions? Can we continue? Okay, let's continue. So accidental cloud disclosure. So CSA had published a study in April to indicating that 1% of public buckets concern sensitive data. This risk exists across Amazon, right? And Azure, Bob, GCP storage, Docker Hub, and Elasticsearch, and GitHub and Git. These are things on there. GitHub is also a cloud service, right? It is a code repository version control that is available on a cloud environment. It is a software as a service, right? Just like an email service and things and all. Here, what is going to happen is that whenever, let's say, you will have a folder in your Google Drive and you want to give access to this Google Drive to someone else. So are you going to add that person's email? So making sure that only that person can have access to that part. But sometimes what we do is that access by anyone with the link, right? If they have that link for this folder, they will be able to access this data out there. So that you may think you might not get that. No one will have access to that link, so they will not be able to do that part. But that can happen out there, right? This person's email ID gets hacked and this link is there in his email ID and then they'll be able to, and this has happened in real time, right? One of the reasons why your forgot password links is supposed to expire after 20 minutes time, right, is for the same reason. If your email gets hacked, it could be a big issue out there, right? And that can be a very targeted attack as well for that part. So let's say in real time, we have seen a particular company, we went to test their application. The application was good, secure, and it is a very large company working on some financial data. Their entire code is on GitHub, and they have forgotten to make this code private. In fact, that was in public. Anyone who is having access to that link will be able to look at the complete code of the application. And in some cases, there are security tokens, username and passwords for that, accessing the database, and everything is there, right? Because that code was again pushed to the production server, and production server wants to communicate other things. That is major problem out there, right? So buckets, S3 buckets are major problem. We have seen, we test the applications, they're pushing the data to an S3 bucket. When we try to access that resource, that is going to be available out there without any authentication, right? Only the API should be able to connect to the bucket and push data out there. But in that case, if you have the link, anyone is able to do that part, right? Being discrete is not security, right? It is just delaying the attack. That's what is going to happen. It's a matter of time that's going to be there. It is quite common, and in our case, it is more than 21%, right? In every 1 to 3 to 4 applications we are seeing, because 90% of our testing, what we do, penetration testing, is going to be based on cloud, and most of the things, the data is again stored on cloud, and there is no proper mechanism for that part, right? So it is very important. That is why we have to tell, right? I keep on telling, segregate each and every component out there and make sure what security is required for this component. If you're having a Google Drive folder, then you have to tell who is the data is there encrypted, right? Who is having access control? Am I doing access control for this? If I'm doing access control, test that process as that, whether that is making sure for that. Create a user and create two users, one with access and one without access. If a user without access is able to access data, the security feature has failed. You have to work on that part. So it is very crucial for us, right? Crucial for us to look into these factors for us. So accidental cloud disclosure makes a huge impact. Makes a huge impact on that. And unauthenticated resource sharing, same thing. It's very much similar. Here you're sharing the resource with someone, right? But what's going to happen, right? Are you making sure that user is authenticated to access that resources or not? So in situations, what is going to happen is that they may be using an improper authentication mechanism to log into the instances out there. Anyone is able to log in as root user. They don't have an IP address setting out there. Database can be accessed by default username and passwords. Also, data that is makes a huge impact, right? That is very crucial. This is very much similar to accidental cloud disclosure, but here you're wantingly not putting any. There it is accidental, right? But here you're wantingly not putting any kind of an authentication, or you're putting up in a weaker authentication mechanism. It's very crucial for you to not say does not have this process for that. Okay, so it's important. So we also, and this is a very important component, right? Identity access management, IAM policy out there. And whenever you're going for a cloud security engineer, this is a particular concept they'll always ask in the resume, that we should have an access management policy. Basically here, we are telling what type of authentication that you're using out there and what type of access control is been given. Meaning, let's say there are 3 people in my security team or operations team. I am going to be the lead. So there are 3 servers. I will have access to all the 3 servers, a complete super level admin out there. And the other 2 people I know that they're working only on 1 or 2 projects. Based on which project they're going to work, I'm going to assign them access to that particular server only. Both of them will not have access to all the 3 servers. They may be having access to only one of the server based on which project they're going to work. Right? You might have seen in your organizations as well in the application level. So who is having access to what kind of services and all those things. So for instance, let's say simple example, you're having a server. Someone has already installed your OS and Apache out here. Okay. And there's some kind of protection is there. The code is need to be pushed into this component out there, right? So for that, a developer will be created in user. The code is by default, it is going to be there var www HTML folder. The developer will only have access to this folder to push the code. This is access managed. Whereas where I'm Karthik, we having full access, I can access all data. There is no restrictions for me. Whereas this restrictions is there. Right? Even let's say something like you may be having something in Jenkins and you're running in a cloud environment. Who is having access to this Jenkins is also access management for that. This has to be properly at a granular level. This has to be done very carefully. The main level of access attacks that is going to happen is because of this. And unlike a lot of people think that attacks are predominantly done by hackers. No, majority of the attacks are going to be done. It's going to be an insider job. The employee who's working in the organization will try to take the data and sell it to someone else, or he like to get back at the organization because he might have been released or done anything of this. So you want to compromise the data. Right? So that plays a very important component of that, right? Access, identity access management, who is having access to what, that has to be there. In certain organizations, there should be a proper champion in there, in the security champion who's going to properly do that process. In my organization, every month we have a IAM process that is going to run where we see what are the different resources that are there. We look at who is having access to that, what type of access they are having out there. Are we giving them any unwanted access out there, right? Is there a developer who is running at an admin level? If he is running, why that is being assigned to them? Probably for a single activity we might have done. So let's say for one day they can have an admin access, but was the access not removed? Is it continuing to have access for that? In that case, make sure remove them, create new users, manage the users, remove the users who have left the organization. All those things comes into play, right? So looking from a user management perspective in a Linux Ubuntu services will make this a bit more easier to understand, right? So that is there. Secure your endpoints, right? Use of cloud service increases to the required, right? Endpoint security, as endpoints often connect directly to the cloud. New cloud projects provide enhanced re-examine security techniques and respond to new threats. So basically it's talking about, let's say we spoke about the Azure DevOps connecting from here, right? So the management portal, management portal can be accessed from your browser. What if your browser is compromised? What if your desktop or laptop is compromised? Right? So let's someone has installed a malware which is collecting all information from your server. When you log into the AWS control, it will capture your username and password, right? And then it is going to give it to the hacker, and now hacker has the password for that, right? So in that, how do you protect that endpoint from not getting compromised, right? And which has happened in real time. Is what happened was in one of our pen testing activities, we were doing a scan for all the employees. It is a small organization, and all the laptops in the network was scanned, and we found that all of them are using an outdated Windows version, and we were able to get inside those systems. And one of the systems we got in was the system administrator. She was managing the entire infrastructure out there. When we got into the system, she had not logged into any of the services, right, from our system. But when we saw that, we accessed her desktop, and the desktop, there's an Excel file. right? When you when you download that Excel file and open that Excel file, there's a complete list of username and passwords for each and every resources out there, right? And that file Excel sheet is not even password protected. That is how difficult it's going to be, right? So that is why it's important to provide the laptops or the things, that has to be there. Then again, we have to use anti-malware for anti-malware, meaning antivirus softwares. We need to have intrusion detection and access control. What can be accessed from where, right? So if her laptop, she's connected to the cloud because she's gone out for a coffee and there's an urgent requirement, she connects to the Starbucks Wi-Fi. There may be other people on the network who can capture that, right? Or she's opening that, she is traveling, she's in the hotel room and connected to the hotel Wi-Fi. And that is also a possibility to crack a system and gain access into them, right? So when you connect to an hotel room Wi-Fi, what is the 100% surety you have that you're actually connecting to an hotel Wi-Fi, not some rogue access point, not an hacker's Wi-Fi, because it look and feel the same way, right? It's very important. So it is securing your endpoints plays a very important role out there, right? That is very, very important. Enable and monitor security logs, right? There are a lot of services that are available out there. And one of the places where we see AI is being widely used in security is in monitoring itself, right? There are quite a few amount of them. They will immediately identify when there is an attack. In some cases, they will be able to help you with rule changes and make immediate impact so that the effect of that hack can be reduced out there. So that is very, very crucial for us. Right. Misconfiguration is very, as we previously we saw, unauthorized resource sharing or unknown accidental information leakage. That is going to happen due to misconfiguration, right? That is going to happen out there. In some cases, misconfiguration also would lead to using an encryption which is not strong enough. That could lead to bypass of encryption. Having properly not set up password policy, that also leads to misconfiguration. All those things could happen out there. In SSH services, we are not configured. Anyone will be able to access port number 22 and able to try to log in, and you can do brute forcing. There is no prevention mechanism for that. All those ways thing comes into the misconfiguration part. Personally, each bucket and group of recommendation, you have to constantly check what is the access policy for your buckets. It is not that once you have done and you forget about it. You have to periodically check for all the resources, how the access management is done, right? And then we have to see web addresses, cloud addresses are set up properly, ensure the default access permission are never used, right? In some cases, when you're installing MySQL installation and things and all on the cloud, it will run have a default installation policy that will not be very good in security. We have to make modification to that. Determine a user access driver that is required, who can view and who can make modification, right? For each bucket and services that's including out there. That is very important. Misconfiguration is very important, right? And very difficult to go about and check as, right? So that is very, very difficult for us. But all these different attack vectors we saw, how can we overcome this, right? You may be thinking, like a lot of organizations know what they're doing. It is very not true out there. A lot of people, they don't know. One of the reasons why DevSecOps and cloud security engineers are in huge demand nowadays is exactly that point. A lot of organizations are failing compliance tests. They don't know what they're doing. And even if they're doing, they don't know why it is good or wrong or right or wrong. They don't know the differentiation. Why a lot of people, because a lot of organization people are working in this are intelligent people. I'm not telling they're dumb. But the thing is, they don't understand security, right? They come from networking background. They come from development. They're looking from that perspective itself, right? They're looking more at quality of service. They're not quite aware what's happening in security. So how do you provide support and how to make things better, right? So here is one is mandatory company-wide training. Not only basic training for security for all the employees, technology specific security training for the technicians out there. For development team, there will be development related security training. Operations team will have an operations related security training. Deploy web application firewalls. Previously, it was they were focused more on network firewalls. It is nowadays it is. WAF is very important. Then again, monitor them for logs, right? Implement a zero trust policy model out there. Because in zero trust, we have to assume that we are already compromised, right? I don't trust anyone. I don't trust any request. Every request has to be challenged, and the challenge has to be accepted, and the challenge has to be replied with before giving an access for that. Okay. And regularly patch management, meaning a lot of organization, they will have a list of softwares that are there in their application. And every month they're on clock, they're going to check is there any new vulnerabilities in those softwares. And if that vulnerability is there, they're going to fix it, update it immediately. Right? That is going to be there. Having a multi-factor authentication. If any request access to important or critical information, always make sure that you have multi-factor, meaning we could be getting OTP or Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator for accessing that part is very important. And managing user access rights is very important. Right? Looking at that is why security teams are a bit unique, right? When you go to development team or DevOps team, they're more into technical stuff, right? They focus more on things technical, and you have to be much more of that. A security person is someone who's not only they have to be very good at technically, they also have to interact with the whole set of people out there. They have to understand who is responsible for what in that. That makes it difficult, right? One of the reasons why they're paid better than most roles is because their requirement engaging different stakeholders is there, right? When you see a lot of small companies hiring security members, these security people are directly interacting with the CTOs and CISOs and CEOs sometimes, right? So it is very important. So check for buckets, data access to that. It is properly done. Periodically check for that. Implement security in software development lifecycle only. Make sure third-party resources are that you're using is up to the mark. They're not using any vulnerable component out there. So you can also have a lot of automation tools to manage lifecycle of account and permissions, ensure timely updates and removal of unnecessary access. In SaaS, let's say there are certain compliance tools. For instance, when an employee leaves the organization or has been released from the organization, when you update in one location, the employee has been demoted, automatically it will reach out to all the controls and remove access to all the resources for that user. For instance, in our organization, when an employee gets deboarded, he will lose complete access to the Gmail G Suite. So meaning he cannot access his email, he cannot access the Google Drive, he cannot access the Google Documents. Nothing is going to be done, right? Everything is going to be removed from that. So we need to have that automation process because security doing independently manually is very, very difficult. You have to be in a great state of mind for doing that. Right. And finally, make sure conduct audit, pen testing and vulnerability, VAPT testing in a regular way. Usually on a bare minimum time, a lot of organizations do it once in a year and certain organization does every quarter. Depending on the information you collect, this is going to change, right? If you're collecting critical data in your application, then you have to do it once in 3 months. So compliance will take care of that. So you can talk to them about that. But here is where the cloud providers are getting interesting out there, right? They're getting intelligent. They're providing security as a service, right? So because now, I think recently you might have seen the Wix.io is one of the cloud compliance security testing tools out there that was recently taken over by Google. So they want to do that, provide security as a service, database security, all those components can be, how do you automate the process, right? Access to security experts. You don't have to always depend on your own team. You can check out with the the cloud providers. They will also give the tools, security tools that are relevant for your applications, updates them. You can easily implement them, right? Same like cloud, the cloud-based security tools can be implemented faster, and it is better than, you know, getting an internal team working on a new tools and things. It will make managing your cloud environment much more easier for you, right? This is a bit more of the infant stage. Uh, we are seeing a lot of tools coming up in this space out there, but there is not very specific ones. You know, there's a lot of things that are happening out there. The main reason is even the cloud has been for there for some time, cloud security is still at the earlier stages, right? So it's important. You know, the bigger organizations have figured it out to a large extent, is the smaller organization which are struggling. Yeah. So that's it for cloud security. Any questions? Do let me know, right? From a job perspective or from course perspective, right? Please let us know what you got. Any questions?
Yeah. Sorry, I've been out of in and out, and I just got back because I was driving. So I wanted to ask you, can you talk more on security as a service, because it's a kind of new concept, right? And as you would see, platform as a service, software as a service, and all that. So can you talk more and tailor it down to a typical example of where, let's say, MSPs are developing their system to be as security as a service?
Yeah.
So what
So
are they,
one of the
what
places
are
where we
they?
see, yeah, please continue. Sorry to continue.
Yeah, what are they going to be leveraging on cloud service providers, and how you just give a holistic framework of how that functions?
Yeah. So let's look at from an attack perspective. We spoke about what are the different, one of the attack vectors we saw, which is important, was from an misconfiguration perspective, right? There is your cloud may be not properly configured, which could lead to attacker gaining access to a cloud environment out there. So now how do you know whether you have done configuration thing is done properly or not, right? For instance, let me just give me a second. Let's say this is a CIS benchmark. So for AWS services out there. So in each and every topic here is going to be some kind of a security metric that I need to check whether that is being done or not, right? So for instance, it is telling that, so avoid the use of root account. So the root accounts as unrestricted access to all the AWS accounts, strictly recommended that use this account is avoided out there. So, and it is telling some way, how do I check for this process out there, right? And for each and every different attack vectors that are there, and it keeps on changing, right? This is an probably an older version of, see, this is a 2018 version of AWS Web Service CS benchmark, and now we are in 2025. So number of controls here is going to be quite few out there. How are you going to check this manually, right? It's going to be quite complicated out there. So AWS or cloud providers will have some kind of a tool where it will connect to your cloud dashboard and check for this configuration. So if there are instances out there, it will check what is the configuration you have done on the instance. Is there any misconfiguration or a vulnerable configuration? It will highlight it out, and then probably you can fix it based on the report generated by that. That is one place. There's a DDoS protection mechanism as well. There are better firewall and WAF protection now by the services out there. Previously, it was not that, right? So they used to guide the application via locally available WAF and then to the process out there. So now that is, all those components are getting better, if you see. So Based on the attack vector, there are different tools available out there. For an APIs, there are Dash tools out there. From a code perspective, there are SaaS tools out there. So different scenario, there are different tools. But as I told, there are still in the early stages out there. We need to focus on it. For log monitoring and all, they do have, they're coming up much more. Like you do have Cloud Trail Lake, AWS Cloud Trail Lake out there for monitoring logs and things. And Splunk is also having cloud-based approach for scanning your logs and identifying vulnerabilities and things like that, right? So those things are there. So I think if you see AWS security certification, it is predominantly talking more about the tools that are there for providing security in the cloud environment, right? But the difference between AWS certification on security compared to an Azure security is Azure security is hands-on, what I have seen, and right, Azure security is hands-on, whereas AWS is more theoretical. They're talking more about tools. So that is the difference between the both. Yeah. Hope it answered your question first.
Yeah. So but I will have one more. Like, how can you looking at the processes through which security as a service is being implemented or carried out, right? So when you now try to compare it with penetration testing, right, like pen tests, where you're identifying vulnerabilities and trying to mitigate those vulnerabilities to ensure stronger security posture for many particular for in organizational IT environment. So I'm looking at it. Does it not seem to be similar? Let's, for example, I know there are on little organizations or
So
companies
what you're
that
telling is absolutely right. What you're telling is absolutely right. The problem with pen testing is it is much more manually intensive, and you have to be really good at your pen testing activity. That. So there are absolute freshers in pen testing who are getting $120,000 per annum because based on the knowledge. Pen testing is one of those roles where your education background plays in very less importance, right? So that is what we have seen. Based your knowledge is more important out there, but it is difficult to get people out there to do that, and that is one thing. Second thing is that again, pen testing is not done on a regular basis. It is not something I can do it every week. That is not going to happen either. I think the earliest process, let's say if you are having a very good security budget, you can do it in once in a month, right? And that is again, it's going to be intensive, right? On an average, you're seeing somewhere between 6 months to 1 year, the pen test action is going to happen. If there is a vulnerability introduced into the system, you will not know about it, right? You will not know about that particular component. So that is when your scans or your tools are going to help you identify those vulnerability earlier cases. And again, see there, these tools are again defined to make the process simpler, and it is in more like an automation where non-pen testers will be able to identify vulnerabilities, and these tools will also give recommendation for that as well. What are the identified vulnerabilities? How we can finish it.
Okay.
Okay. So any other question, guys?
Sorry, I got a year late, so I missed some things. But I just want to ask a few questions. Um, how intense is this lab for this class or project? Is there going to be any that is going to help in this class?
What kind of labs we're having? From a web application for Linux, we talk about, as I told, we will be installing our Ubuntu instance where we'll be configuring different services that is going to be taken care. And from a web application perspective, we have many different vulnerable instances, web application, where we talk about what are the different vulnerabilities. And there's an actual hands-on pen testing activities that is there. So we'll talk about different tools a hacker is going to be using out there, and we'll use how to install those tools, how to use it. Predominantly working on Kali Linux for these services. For DevSecOps, again, we'll talk about how to use SaaS tool, DAS tools, actually run a real-time code and try to run those services, security services on them. And we are also introducing a little bit of, compliance perspective. We'll talk about how ISO compliance is required, how you look into that perspective as a security team, how you can aid and conduct security audits in the organization from an ISO perspective. All those things will be done in the main course.
So here I would like to add, as you mentioned, you have joined a little late. So we do have two different types of classes. One is our this internship classes. It is consist of 7, 8 consecutive session. Normally we conduct in a weekend. The main agenda of the class is to share the awareness, because we need to deal with many of our non-IT people who wants to migrate on the IT field, and they don't have any idea how to, which domain is good for them, which domain in required coding experience or not. So with this 7 or 8 weekend, they will came across all most of those aspects inside related to cyber security is act like a test bed, right? Now, once we do have like a 3 different free sessions. One is for AI, one is for DevOps, and one is for cybersecurity and DevSecOps. So, and we do have a paid or job ready training. These trainings agenda is to make sure our students will be job ready and get their job from in the market for 3 or 4 job roles specifically within next 7 weeks or 8 weeks. Is like every day, daily 2 hours, Monday to Friday. We have a morning batch, we do have an evening batch, and it is like 90% hands-on. Over there, we do have a lots of flexibility, or we can showcase the live project practice, labs, hands-on everything. Now, we also like to have a few part of those labs in our free classes. Now, you can understand the free class is only 7 weekend, like 14 hours. So we are more focused about the the fundamental rather than lab, because we don't have that much availability is the time is the issue, right? But in our main course, where we our main goal will be to prepare our students for the US job market. So over there 90% is hands-on. You will have lots of projects for practice, you have lots of labs, lots of operating system where you need to work with that. So that is the limitation from our end. Now, quick notifications from hopefully from next weekend we are going to start Friday evening. Let us know if it is good timing for you or not for our AI internship program that will consist of 5 weeks. Data scientist with AI, and that job ready training for that is going to start off April end. Our cybersecurity job ready training, the last batch was started in Jan, which is DSO08 has ended. Uh, I think yesterday or last Friday. So next weekend, next Friday, we're going to start our new batches. It is going to for another 7, 8 weeks. So those it is like a very rare opportunities I can say, because it's happened and the registrations open once in 2 months, and it is a limited seat classes. Uh, Let us know if you are willing to deep dive and go for the cybersecurity job, DevSecOps job role in the job market. Okay, so today I think we are done with our cybersecurity classes, and we are going to start our DevOps sessions. It is the 8 weekend session. Our trainer Mr. Debashish is already here, and he's going to go for another 2 hours to. I think we have something very important things to share, mostly for. Sorry if I pronounce your name wrong. Yeah, please go ahead.
I have one more question to ask, just to clarify. Now, for the DevSecOps, is there going to be like a CI/CD pipeline? Are we going to do like a pure um, project that is going to entail how it is in the real world?
I think so. To learn about CI/CD pipeline, you need to go for our DevOps classes, because DevOps classes is a 8 weeks, 2 months class where you are going to build your CI/CD pipeline with all of the DevOps toolset, including Ansible, Terraform, Kubernetes, Git, and other stuffs. Okay, but for now, if you want to learn about security on CI/CD pipeline, then our cybersecurity DevSecOps is the class you are looking for. So for non-IT students, we always recommend them to join our DevOps class first, because DevOps class we are going to teach three important things: Linux, cloud, and DevOps CI/CD pipeline, including Docker, Kubernetes, Ansible, Terraform, Azure DevOps, and everything. Now, once you have the holistic idea about the infrastructure, the software development lifecycle, then you go move forward to how to secure those pipelines. So DevSecOps, you are going to learn more about security on CI/CD pipeline. In our DevOps class, you are going to learn how to build and operate the CI/CD pipeline.
Okay, thank you.
Now, it is based on your previous experience. If in your any of your prior project, if you work with DevOps CI/CD pipeline, then DevOps class is not. You don't need DevOps prerequisites. You can directly join our cybersecurity classes. But you are not at all IT engineers. You are, try to migrate from different back things, and we have a n number of success stories. I can tell day long about those our old students who have, migrate from hospitality industry, educational industry, retail industry, and successfully landed the job. Some have already landed, some are few of them already on the process, and they are right now, facing the interview, and they are many of them are already clear, like stuck with the final round of interview. I think one of them is also here. Silas is also here. So um, it is not about where you have started; it is about where you want to end. Yeah, Michael.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Um, I have a question about someone coming from cybersecurity um, profession. So, based on the American market where cybersecurity is integrated into most of the colleges, so
Mm-hmm,
it's hard to get into entry roles. So
mm-hmm,
I'm thinking of going into DevSecOps
mm-hmm.
to upskill my probably I can use that as yardstick over the people doing cybersecurity in the college. So I want to know, are you guys on Azure? Are you guys using Azure platform for your DevSecOps, or it's something you can work with any cloud provider like AWS and GCP?
So if you, I think Mr. Karthik is the best person, or Mr. Devash is the best person who can answer. So now for cloud security, I'm just giving a synopsis. Then that's a brief, and they can correct me if I'm going somewhere wrong. So cloud security, you can use any security part. Now, Azure have a different component called Azure DevOps, which will allow you to create the CI/CD pipeline inside the cloud infrastructure. Okay. So, and it is right now having a good traction in the market. I'm giving an example. In DevOps classes, we have completed so far now 44 batches. It is 2 months long. Okay. So until DSA 42, we used to teach GitLab for CI/CD pipeline. Then we replace with Azure DevOps, because Azure DevOps is a we cannot avoid anymore. as a primary skill for DevOps. Now, while you are in DevSecOps training, you are going to learn about the CI/CD pipelines security. It doesn't matter where it is hosted. It may hosted in Jenkins, it may hosted in GitLab, it may hosted in Azure. Make sense? Mr. Karthik, would you like to, or Mr. Devash, would you like to add any points on that? Because this is very, very important question.
Yeah. So when it comes to DevSecOps, sorry, can you hear me? Yeah. From a DevSecOps perspective, the different components out there, right? So we do run a CI/CD pipeline, but it's more specific to there's a different components from security perspective, that is SAST, DAST, and SCA, and image scanning perspective that we're looking in that scenario out there. We do one of them is in the Jenkins perspective and one from Azure perspective as well, right? But we do a lot of preliminary to that part. So because when you find any vulnerabilities in the DevSecOps perspective, you should be able to understand what that is happening out there, right? For you to be able to do that part, we'll talk about Linux security as well as web application security, where it will add to that component of it. But if you're someone who is not aware of CI/CD pipeline before, then directly coming into DevSecOps, you may not have the sufficient skill set to pick up from that particular perspective, right? So you might have to do the DevOps course and then take on the DevSecOps course for that part, is what I would suggest. Because the amount of wide variety of topics that we cover in security, because the topics that we do, you are able to apply for multiple job roles, right? It's not that one single job role you're working on. You're working as a security engineer, cloud security engineer, web application pen tester, security architect, security manager. There are quite variety of job roles you're applying out there. So we don't start at a basic level in a DevSecOps course, right? You need to have some amount of understanding of Linux, and again, you need to have some level of understanding of how the DevOps CI/CD pipeline works, how the project is built, and things on that. Once you have that understanding, it makes more sense, right? We do cover a bit of medium and advanced level topics, but if you're someone who are not aware of operations perspective, then probably I would suggest start with DevOps and then come to DevSecOps. Hope it answered your question.
Yeah, thank you. But what I'm still saying is the DevOps, are you guys using Azure DevOps as a platform?
Yes.
And is it integrated with the security, like while the training is going on, is there going to be a way of integrating security into it, or the DevSecOps have to be a different class entirely?
Yeah, DevSecOps is an entire class differently, right? For DevOps, what DevSecOps is taking, you will see how to implement Kubernetes Terraforms at the Azure level out there. But when you come to DevSecOps, is a course where we'll talk about. At the moment, we don't talk about Kubernetes, but we talk about using different security tools in the CI/CD pipeline. So there are two different components. You're not having a single course, just go for the DevOps part, and where you look at CI/CD, they'll talk about CI/CD pipeline. In the same course, we don't talk about security as well. They're two different courses. Am I right, Kamana?
Thank you so much.
Michael, nutshell, we do have
two
to
different. Add to that.
Yeah.
Yes, Michael, your question was whether when we learn about Azure DevOps as a CI/CD pipeline hosted over Azure platform, whether we also incorporate few of the security features. Yes, we do it at the DevOps level. So when we are integrating those resources of we do the various integration of the various DevOps tools onto the pipeline. We definitely do some sort of security implementation at that level. But yes, when you say that overall, whether my pipeline and has been securely built onto the cloud platform, that is, we are taking care of the cloud security as well as the pipeline security, which is the same thing. So we do it in a broader sense of the term. So you have to know on a low level how you implement the security, and on a high level how to inbuild all those tools to implement that particular level of security that is required and in an enterprise level. Okay.
So
Did I
here
answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
I would like to add one more point, okay, if you don't mind. We do have two classes. One, the starting point will be your DevOps, if you're not at all aware of DevOps, okay, where we are going to learn about the infrastructure, like building a house kind of thing. And our DevSecOps classes, you're going to learn how to secure your house or your pipeline. Yeah, Benny, I'm sorry. Please ask your question. Please go ahead.
Okay. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you for the clarification. I got some ideas when you are guys talking about. So I was searching who's gonna give the DevOps class, and I'm really lucky to get you guys. Um, so my problem is how I'm gonna how I'm gonna join the class, which is started on next Friday. And is there any specific fees for that service, or what should I do? I don't have any idea about that.
So first thing first, you need to okay, because it is we are now why it is the first step of your success, because many of the things which is not direct like does not comes under DevOps curriculum, like or DevOps, but it without those skill set you cannot become a successful DevOps or cybersecurity engineer. One of them is Linux. A second is your some cloud ideas or expertise. So our DevOps classes start with Linux because that is a fundamental. Then go for cloud. Then we move forward with cloud. Then next 1 month and 1 weeks we go for the DevOps toolset, or all the small tools of about DevOps like Docker, Kubernetes, Terraform, Ansible, Git, Azure DevOps. Azure DevOps is our newest tools, which is was it replaced our previous tools, that GitLab. Uh, Now this is the whole DevOps tools. So I just ping in our WhatsApp group, so I can send you, or we can send you the course curriculum, about the timing, about the pricing, and everything you will find over there. Which time zone you are in?
My time zone?
Hmm.
It's Mountain Time.
Okay, so it will be good time for you. Yeah, I think 6:30 p.m. CST.
Yeah.
So just ping. Do you have our WhatsApp link?
Yeah, somebody has invited me, and I just got included in the group.
Okay.
That's a good part, and
I have shared the link as well. Just if you missed, just join over there. We do have many links. Some of for internship, the joining, understanding the roadmap. For that, we have a one group. We do have a separate group for paid training. We have a separate group for which students, after complete your training, if you join, if you are looking for job, we do have a separate training where our mentors is guide you to how to find those jobs easily. So we do have a various groups. So make sure which group you are in.
okay, that's awesome. Thank you very much. And
Most welcome.
I wanted just to make sure that I'm on the right track,
Yeah.
because um, I have no jobs right now, but I've graduated from networking and security,
Okay.
and I have a CCNA certificates, and I'm going to join because the CCNA certification doesn't have any jobs in here,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to switch to DevOps. I have some clues about the Linux and stuff, um,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not exactly sure to join the preparation class, which is the DevOps, which is the Linux part and stuff, and I have to transfer to the DevSec and stuff, right?
Yes,
So
DevSecOps is the why DevSecOps came in the picture in the first place. So many company, while after Netflix successfully showcased the whole world that if you automate your software development life cycle, it will improve your productivity, couple of fold, like 10 times. Okay, then many of small mid-scale enterprise level company, they try to move for automation, DevOps automation. And while they switch from their monolithic to this agile methodology, they compromise some of their security protocols, because at that moment I'm talking about 2019, 18, 20, late 2020, then these DevSecOps came in the picture. So okay, you have done your automation in your software development cycle, good, but what about your security? Did you follow the industry rules and guidelines? No. So now DevSecOps is a separate domain or job role created. If you, and the most why we always push our students, even they are non-IT people, for DevSecOps, because it is easier to get the job. If you go to LinkedIn, try to find a DevSecOps position, you will find the positions are open for last 4 or 5 months. Even you will find some position they reposted. You can find the one position open for 3 weeks and maybe they got less than 100 applicant. But go for any other job positions. Okay, data science, sorry, not data science, data analytics, development, testing, and any just name it. You will find within a one day there are more than 100 applicant applied. So here demand is good, supply or applicant number is less compared to others. Make sense?
Yeah, awesome. Uh,
We do have a 2 hours free
well,
session for now. Mr. Devash is going to start. It is like a miniature version of your DevOps classes. I
okay.
if you have time, try to attend.
Yeah, cool. How can I follow you? Like, what is the next step to register into the class?
You
Are you
just
gonna send a link for me?
yeah, you just say hi over there. I will send you the link in the group.
Okay, I said hi. That's a Kelly internship.
Yeah, I got. We can see it.
That-
Well, I'm going to send you the link, and all of those upcoming class course details and everything for call off for the registration, we are going to share in the group, so you are not going to miss. Don't worry.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Most welcome. Any other question, or we should start with our DevOps session now?
Sorry, I have a little question. I won't spend more time on it. I live in Lagos, Nigeria. What are the prospects of getting a remote job, say in the US, in Canada, or in Europe after having completed? I intend to take both courses, though I've taken a lot of courses. I'm an IT person in multiple IT fields. So assuming I'd say I take DevOps now and later cybersecurity and DevSecOps. What are the prospects?
So here is the thing. I cannot tell you or misguide you because I want to sell or want you to enroll our training. So you need to understand, training is for your skill upgradement. But to get the job,
Sure.
you need two things. One is skill, another is work authorization.
Okay,
If you
work
are,
authorization.
yes, so most of the US job, they are and Canadian job, they are strictly followed these regulations. You can only get the remote position either two ways. If you are connected with any big MNCs where they have the office in Nigeria, or
Okay, okay. Fair
from
enough.
in any freelancing platform. But
Okay, okay.
if you apply directly for any company in US, then you need to make it sure that they are ready to sponsor you.
Okay, okay.
So
Thank you a lot. It's very
sponsorship is comes with three different visas: O1 visa, H1B visa, L1 visa. H1s open once in a year, L1 and O1 can open anytime. So you just need to find out. You will find a sponsorship company for particular DevSecOps, because this is very rare skill in US job market as well. then you will have got a list that the the battle will not be easy for you compared to the people who are right now in US, because they don't care about the job authorization part. They are already US. They have a, I'm assuming they have a valid job authorizations if they are in
Oh,
green card or citizenship. But for you,
oh,
it will be a little bit tough battle because you need to
oh.
prove that your skill set is top notch. For that, our training may help, definitely going to help you. And the same time, you need to showcase that yes, you are eager to come in US or remote positions. So you want to work for remote positions, go for Nigerian-based MNCs. First 1 or 2 years work for there, then go come back or come US, or try to find
Okay.
some sponsored company.
Or remote platforms.
Remote platform means you are talking about freelancing, like upskill.
Freelancing.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
but
no,
you
no.
can go direct for their payroll if they are willing to sponsor your visa.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, sir. It's very candid, very sincere. Thanks a lot.
Most welcome. We are here to guide you, because there are lots and lots of organization training, special training institute. They are here to misguide. Okay, you do the training, I will give you 100% job authority. How come? Because job is nothing but like a business handshake. There are some many other metrics you need to fulfill, right?
Yeah, sure, sure.
Okay. Any other question,
Hello.
or should we start?
Thanks very much.
Hello.
You answered all of the questions.
Yeah,
Hello.
yeah, Joel.
This just I want to know regarding the course, which course I'm going to take. I'm really confusing myself. So, I'm as a SQL DBA. I've been
Uh-huh.
in industry almost 9 years, and
Mm-hmm.
SQL DBA role is try to isolate it, and I haven't seen many jobs in the USA as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to switch my SQL to other platforms. So, what's your suggestion to taking this one of this course I can go for, since I
So,
have SQL DB experience?
so now I am telling you something. Maybe you'd like it. You're not going to like it. SQL or any database related job is going to be, I know, every now and then the demand will be reduced, right?
Yeah.
You will more days you will pass, you will find lesser or scarcity on the job. So
Hmm.
you need to find a job where the trendy field. One is data science with AI. It is just started, is booming. Another one is DevSecOps. Now always try to get prepared or ready for a domain specific role, not a tool specific role. Because tools today we do have a one tool, tomorrow it may replace with other better tool, right? So always try to, you have a 10 years experience, you have a like, I don't need to it is like tell you how the IT market operates. You are well aware of that.
Hmm.
But my suggestion will be try to prepare the job yourself. If you are migrating from SQL DBA to any other positions, uh, go for domain specific positions, not for tool specific. Okay.
Hmm.
So
So, what technology is involved? Because I missed some of the lecture. I'm pretty much familiar with all the technology, but as I working in IT industry, I have seen a lot of technologies in my life. So, as a DevOps circle, whatever you're saying, that what technology involved, it's pretty much similar. I'm familiar. I work in Azure cloud infrastructure,
mhm,
SQL, Microsoft SQL, all
mhm,
the server, new edition, old edition,
mhm.
as well as PowerShell scripting. I have
Oh,
worked as well.
okay.
So, and I graduated in computer science, so I have knowledge of shell scripting,
Linux
and
as well.
Linux, yeah. And
Then you
okay,
go
in that,
directly. You should go. What about your coding experience in Python
no,
language?
I'm because of coding, I'm not good at that, but I'm basically in a managing and supporting production supporting skill. I have that,
So then
which
go
is
for cybersecurity, because that is the,
cybersecurity.
yeah, because if you have a coding knack, data science and AI will be your next things. But if you are more about, rather than operation, more about managing stuff, then go for
Yeah,
cybersecurity. You don't need the DevOps classes because you are aware of Linux and cloud. So that's
yeah.
the
Yeah,
two
but
fundamental.
Menon, my concern is, because we have already worked on one or two candidates who come from database, who come directly to DevSecOps, but they do struggle. They will be repeating certain components which they already know in DevOps. But from the DevOps CI/CD pipeline perspective, when they come directly to DevSecOps, they will struggle out there. Probably doing that component DevSecOps, even though the DevOps they can do and then come to DevSecOps, I think probably they will be able to better, utilize the services in what we do in DevSecOps. I think so.
So it is again, Joel, it is based on
Yeah.
your timeline. If you have a job and you want to move slowly but steadily, then as Mr. Karthik says, go with the DevOps, understand all the software development lifecycle, agile methodology, and all the pipelines and their components. Once you
Mhm.
understood that, then you can go for DevSecOps. But if you have a time scarcity and you want to do, go for right now, maybe I can understand, then you need to put little bit more effort on your cybersecurity if you go directly in cybersecurity of our classes.
So DevOps also is a lot of I've seen that a lot of scripting is automation is involved. So a
Yes.
lot of tools is there as well.
So you
So
can you can do the automation through two way, through their CLI or their portal. If you go through their CLI, then you need to go with all those script. You can write Bash, Shell, Groovy, Rust. There are so many Java things is there, but that is only 10% of DevOps people are working. And for that, there are a good number of libraries are also available. Terraform have their own library which you can use. It will be a cake of work for you because it is not anything new you are going to learn. It is how the things organized over there. You just need to learn that part.
so security as cyber security also coding involved
No,
once comes up.
there is
No?
no coding. You know the scripting. Scripting is not at all
Yeah,
coding, right?
coding, yeah. So scripting is involved as well in cyber security.
Very rare.
But
I think Mr.
yeah.
Karthik is the one who is, every day breathing on the cybersecurity domain. So he can tell what is the percentage of,
No,
scripting and
not much scripting or coding perspective. Only part of coding where it will help you if you are coming from a coding background. For me, especially when you will do the web application pen testing, probably that will be a bit more easier for you from others because you know how the application process works and how the data is moving around and things. So, but from coding perspective, there's not much coding we do. There's not much.
Yeah.
It's not
So
required.
I listened to Mr. Ketki, how do you pronounce the last name, who are trained to the cybersecurity?
Karthik.
Karthik. Karthik,
Yeah.
what about you discuss about because I haven't attended a full session, but middle of the
Mm.
session I listen. And what about your thought about that discussion about that? I pretty much familiar with that. My knowledge of that cloud infrastructure, whatever you say. But my question to you, that's confusing me. DevOps is going to be better option? No.
See, again, it depends on the job role you're going to apply for, right? Since you've
Mhm.
already worked on cloud environment, since you already worked on in the process like that, so you're telling about you're having about almost a decade of work experience, right? So what
Yeah.
are the job roles that you're looking at? Is someone at a security level manager or an architect? And we also see certain job openings for security director position with 7 or 8 years of experience in things like that. So from that perspective, right, if you're for different components that you're doing out there, directly doing your DevSecOps makes very good response out there, right? Where you go in as an organization, Either you're going to manage or going to build a security team in that organization out there and do everything out there. In, but you will find it little bit difficult for one particular role if you directly come down to DevSecOps. That is the DevSecOps role itself, right? DevSecOps role, we might need to have little bit more understanding of the underlying technology like Terraform, Kubernetes, and things and all. That is going to be there, right? So, but if you can figure it out, the basics of CI/CD pipeline on your own, since you're already coming in from computer science degree and things like that, then probably starting with DevSecOps makes more sense, is what I feel.
So
Right.
here, if you don't mind, we are lucky enough that we do have one fellow in this meeting who have done our DevOps classes and cybersecurity classes, and he is right now in the job market. So he can give you the right, because we are seeing from, still we are seeing from inside, but little bit outside. So Selasi, can you guide us? Selasi, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
So can
Yeah.
you tell like what is the importance for the from your honest overview, because we also need the guidance. You've done the DevOps classes, you've done our cybersecurity classes. Now you are looking for DevSecOps job role, and you have attempted many interviews last 2 months with our consulting firm. Now you many of the interview you have cracked so far now. So what is your point? How in every DevSecOps position, what is the percentage of DevOps question is involved?
Um, from what I see, when it comes to the DevOps, more and more is going towards merging DevOps with security. So securing the pipeline and they, it's almost like they want the two in one role. So
Yes.
that's what I'm beginning to see more and more of. So security, having that security side with the DevOps knowledge, it, depending on firm to firm, it would tell how far into a scope of cybersecurity you go on one side, or maybe on another side, how far into DevOps you go. But you definitely need the two.
Uh, Jewel, I think
Yeah.
he's the best one who is his, in the right now standing in the front row. So,
Okay. I
de
can.
why DevSecOps? Because again, it is easier to get the job. The market demand and supply is not yet match. There are lots and lots of demand, but very less number of DevSecOps people in the market.
So, if indeed dies job portal, what
Mhm.
the job title would be? Dev.
DevSecOps, you can search
Or
DevSecOps. So you'll find the jobs are open for last couple of maybe 3-4 months, and still not yet filled. And you can find a 1 week that some new job is
so
opened, but
most of job is remotely, no, just in person, different states.
uh, many job still you'll find little bit better remote positions compared to other field.
Okay, no
Okay,
problem.
any
So,
other question?
no,
Or
thank you very much for your timing and give me the best answer. I
most
appreciate
welcome.
it. And okay, and so I will follow up, huh?
Sure,
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, Kerry, one more question I have.
Mr.
It's
Devashish
William.
will kill me. Yeah, please, Henry. Who is asking?
William. Benjamin Saski.
Hey, Miriam. Yeah, please go ahead.
So I'm waiting some messages appeared on my
Yeah, yeah,
computer waiting for administration approval, just to let you know.
sure. Any other question, guys? Henry, are you trying to say something?
No, I don't think so. I think his mic is on.
Hmm. Okay. Sorry, Mr. Devashish. I put the classes for little hold, and I think we can start for our today's session for DevOps.
Yes.
Jewel, it will help you. Beniam, it will help you to understand how to will if you join only for DevOps, what will be your job role and what will be day-to-day activities.
Thank you,
Okay.
guys. Sorry, Devashish sir, I think we took more of your time today as usual. I will try to. Thanks. And guys, please stay out for DevOps class session. It's really insightful and much more practical hands-on than what we see in DevSecOps. Don't miss it on that part. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thanks.
Thank you, Karthik. Thank you, Mr. Menon. Actually, these discussions are very important than to go into the technical details of any particular topic. So I always value this particular part of the discussion. So there is no way that we should be avoiding these discussions. We are encouraging these discussions for all. Okay. Even during the session, if there is any question related to job or how DevOps fits in or how much it does not fit in, so you please raise your questions. Please. Okay, you can unmute yourself and raise your questions. So it is a very healthy discussion, and that is actually the motivation for this sort of internship programs. Also, we need to understand where we stand and where we need to go. So I will start my session today if everyone is fine. I will start the recording first. Okay, the recording has started. I will share the screen. Please let me know if you are being able to see the screen.
Yeah, we can.
As well as I will go back and open the camera. Okay, so I will come back. Are you being able to see the screen? We are starting a topic called Ansible. Ansible is one very important configuration management tool, which we generally use in the CI/CD pipeline. So if somebody is joining new, we have already covered few of the topics in DevOps, which is we have introduced DevOps in the very first session. Then we went to cloud, that is AWS cloud. We have spent 2 sessions over cloud. Okay. All these recordings are available in our YouTube channel, and we have been sharing each and every weekend sessions and the recordings in that group. So, and in the playlists are all available in our YouTube channel, and those YouTube channel and everything you will be able to find it over the this thing, that is in our training site. Okay. So the next 2 sessions after the cloud, we have devoted over Terraform, where we had a theoretical background on Terraform, and then we used a small demo to see what the magic behind. How do we use, instead of using the proprietary level cloud formation over AWS, we are using Terraform. So how automatically from outside we have seen how we could provision our resources over the cloud. Now, after we have created our house, let's say we have created our building, our home over onto the cloud, okay, in a very good region, or whatever you can say, in a very good locality, very good area. Now, what is your second most important priority? You have secured your house, you have given your security groups, and you have created your firewalls, you have created your authentications and all sorts of security enablement. You have enabled the security, the part which will actually secure your resource over the cloud. That part you have already done. Now, what is the next possible step that you can think of? What will you do once you get your house with a secured fencing or a firewall? What is the next step that you are going to do? Can anybody just give me a real life thought about it? What I am asking is, you have created your house or a resource over a cloud through Terraform, through some external tool which will help you to create your resources over the cloud without accessing the, just 1 hour back, Mr. Karthik was saying about the control plane, that is the management plane, where if you have an access to that console or management plane, then you can create your resources, you can destroy the resources, you can do havoc. That is not a very good security option. But yes, let's say I have another option that with all the security things in place and authentication and authorization, I had built my house over the cloud, or rather a server, I can say server, an EC2 instance or a cloud computing server over onto the cloud through some, without accessing that management plane, that is from outside, with appropriate access. I can do that. Okay, and we have done that. We have built that particular server. Now you tell me, what is the next thing that you can think of as a step?
Securing it.
Security part, you have already done the firewalls, you have done the authentication, you have created the key pairs such that you were and your security credentials are embedded within the AWS CLI. So you will never be allowed to go directly to the AWS cloud to create your resources. So all these things you have already done. That phase is already over. So now with the blueprint, now with the authentication given by the government of any country, that you are being able to procure a land and create your house. That is the normal process that you have done. And that Terraform is your tool to do that. You have done that. That phase is already done. Now, what is the next step that you can think of before you enter the house? What will you do?
Furnish the house.
Furnish the house. Furnish.
Yes.
Yes, that is the next important thing. That means you have got a beautiful house, but that is only the concrete part, the structure you have got. Now you have to make it habitable, isn't it? So you do some interior decorations, some configurations, do some changes, minor changes from here to, which can entirely change the outlook of the house. That is what we are going to achieve with another tool called Ansible, which will now, the infrastructure is already built, the network, the supporting firewall, the supporting security, the supporting infrastructure that you have built over for creating the operating system, the key pair, the hard disk. Okay, everything has been built for the server. Now you are being able to access the server, but it's an empty server. You need to put in some good softwares, isn't it? You have to install few softwares, you have to configure few things such that you are now being able to utilize that particular infrastructure. So that is some configuration management tool should be there in your life cycle. Okay, and that is what we are going to learn in our Ansible. Okay, any questions? So we will learn about Ansible, like we will introduce, we will know about the Ansible architecture, Ansible components. Okay, because Ansible is a configuration management tool. So you will configure on the infrastructure that you have just now built. So you need some access to your hosts. You will create on that particular server. You will access the inventory to go to this endpoint, which is the host. You will do the configuration. You will create playbooks. Playbooks, like somebody was asking about, see, everything is like you are doing some coding of the infrastructure. That is called infrastructure as a code. You are trying to make the infrastructure flexible, and you will declare what you want. So you will write small scripts which are given by either HashiCorp for Terraform, or from Ansible. So Ansible, this like you don't have to know coding. Absolutely no. Okay, you do not need to learn know Java, Python, C hash, any Go, nothing. You do not need to. These are not programming languages. These are small code modules which will be provided by the particular tool, so that you can create your playbook or instructions that you need to make to enable whatever you want. What is more important than how? You do not need to worry about the how, because the how part has been taken care by the tool itself. Okay, you just need to instruct what you want. What is the configuration that you want to do? And you will see that most of the things are already built for you, and those are called modules. So Ansible will produce the modules. Like you want to copy a file from a source to the destination. Will you write a code? You can write a code, but no need. That's why you use a configuration management tool called Ansible. So Ansible will produce or provide you with the modules. Okay, so it will give you the modules. The modules are code snippets already built, code snippets, whatever, I think SNIPETTES, whatever it is. And the code snippets are small modules which are already built in programs or library, which you will call through Ansible, and that call will make an API call that will produce an API call to the cloud to create or configure your server or the resource. The resources which have been built by whom? By Terraform. Terraform has created those resources over the cloud with all security inbuilt on a basic level, on the the ground level. Security has been implemented with those resources, and after that you will do the configuration through Ansible, and those configurations are aided with the Ansible modules. Lots of around 750 plus modules are already inbuilt, and on top of that, if you want to create your custom modules, you can create. Those are the things that we are going to learn in our job ready trainings. Our scope is very limited when I am using this internship trainings or internship sessions. It is very difficult for you to or me to make you understand of these modules, or if you want to customize this module. But here we will use whatever need is there, it will be catered with more than 750 modules. So you can think of anything you want to copy, you want to move, you want to remove, you want to modify, basically whatever you have, the CRUD applications, the CRUD operations. Create, you want to create anything, you want to read anything, resources, you want to update, whatever you do in a database, and you want to delete. All these things are fine, or you can do with the modules that are inbuilt within that. So we will also be using variables and interpolation. Interpolation is the values that you have within the variables that you stored within the variables. These variables are nothing but the storage, memory storage. In the memory, in the internal memory, you will create some variables. Okay, and the variables will have values. How will you get those values from the variables? You will interpolate. You will interpolate or extract the values from those variables. This can also be done like in any programming languages. You do all these things, but here you will do it very, very easily because it is all there within the Ansible scripts. You will also learn to use Ansible rules, but these are definitely we are going to use it in a very detailed manner in our job ready trainings. Okay. Ansible Galaxy, that is a tool which will help you to create the structure of the Ansible role. Ansible Bolt, somebody was asking about whether you do some security implementation with the tools that you implement on the CI/CD pipeline. Now, yes, like for this is one of the tools within Ansible that will create. So you can create an Ansible Vault to store your secrets. That is all the security keys, credentials, passwords, passcodes, whatever you see, you can safely put it into Ansible. Or you want to encrypt your Ansible code. The code, something which is as a text or some YAML files, you create the YAML files, but those are also text files which can be easily read by someone from outside. Why to give them the code access? So why don't you encrypt them? Encrypt the entire coding structure that you have built, and you can put them into the vault. Vault is, about in the bank, you will have the vaults. Similarly, think of a software, the tool is giving you the protection of all your secrets, even your code. You can encrypt them and put it into a vault. Whenever you want to use them, decrypt them and use it. So coding and encoding, encoding and decoding, everything happens within the vault. So in our hands-on, if there is enough time today, or maybe we can do it on the next day, that is, we will do a small demo. Okay. That how we can create our the configurations over the hosts. We can call those hosts, and from the main server we can control whatever we need over those hosts. So this is your server, and these are the hosts scattered all over the world. So this is one host, this is another host. Okay, another host. It can be anywhere in this world. And what you do, you will configure through the Ansible. Ansible is over here. You do not need to create Ansible agents anywhere else. Only that you have to ensure that you have Python, because Ansible works on Python. So Python should be, you have to ensure, and there is a mechanism. Ansible will give you that, gather the information whether in this host, the nodes, whether you have the Python or not. If not, it will give back a response that you need to. And Ansible, through the Ansible, you will install Python over there. So you have to ensure the Python is available all over the nodes. The rest, everything will be done, taken care by Ansible to connect it and all those things. That is what we want to install and configure our slaves. These are called slaves. This is the master. This is the master, and these are the slaves. Okay, these are all slaves. This is the master. Any question? You do not need Ansible anywhere on the host. That is one of the biggest advantage. There is a competitor called Chef, which is a competitor of Ansible, but Chef is nowadays quite below in the market position with respect to Ansible. Ansible is so popular and the learning curve is so small that many people learn Ansible with respect to Chef. Chef is very difficult to learn, not difficult to learn, but you need much more time. You have to, the learning curve is very steep, as well as this is like these are loosely coupled. But here in Chef, you have to put them into a cluster. And to maintain a cluster is not very simple because you have to have the Chef agents running on each and every node in that cluster. This is going to cost. The architecture is costly when you go through Chef. Whereas with Ansible, you do not need to. There is no cluster concept. That is why it is so simple to implement. The architecture is very, very simple and very easy to learn. And we will do this. We will configure an Apache web server over onto any host, and we will customize the welcome page of Apache. These are the things that these are that installation. These are all part configuration and customization. These are all part of what you say as configuration. Are you building any infrastructure? No, you are not building an infrastructure. This server is already created for you. This host is already there, already created by Terraform. So you just need, the house is there. You are doing the interior decoration. Is that concept more or less there? Any question? So why we learn Ansible? What is the history of Ansible? How Ansible works? Ansible architecture. So what is Ansible? We have already discussed that. Ansible is an automation and orchestration tool, popular for its simplicity of installation, ease of use in what concerns the connectivity to the clients, its lack of agent for Ansible clients, and the multitude of skills. That means you do not need to create an architecture which is cluster based, because you do not have to have the Ansible clients. That makes the architecture very simple and easy. Connectivity to the clients is very simple because it is based on SSH. You know SSH. Okay. SSH is the part of Open SSH toolkit. So SSH is a TCP/IP based protocol. Okay. Which will help you to connect from one server to the other server, or one machine to the other machine. That is simply, protocol means what? Protocol is the guidelines. So that guideline will help you to guide the endpoint. That means you will reach the endpoint using that guidelines of SSH. So Ansible functions by connecting via SSH to the clients. So it doesn't need a special agent on the client side. So therefore, unlike Chef, it does not need any special agent to be polled. The agent do not have to poll every now and then, every few seconds to the server, and that polling is a resource intensive process. Okay, this part is not at all there in your Ansible. Therefore, these are very important considerations when you think of an architecture. How easy the architecture is to be implemented, whether it is going to be maintained. No, there is no maintenance cost because you are not building any cluster. And side by side, you are pushing the modules to the client. So it's a push module. Unlike Ansible is based on push modules. Ansible does the push module is based on the push model, whereas Chef is on the pull model. Now, can anybody tell me the advantage of push versus pull? You are pushing to the edge, you are pushing to the host. Whereas to Chef to function, it has to pull from the host. So pull is costly because here it is a single activity. Here there is to do one configuration, you have to do 2 activities. And these activities have to be in sync because these are in a cluster. The host and the master is in a cluster. The master, before it needs to do any configuration over the host, it has to pull. That means it will have to pull the agent. The agent has to be triggered to let that particular job be deployed over onto the host. So instead of having a push module, why do we have to pull and then push? Not needed. But here, but in Chef it is needed. So we will discard. We will not go for this. And most of the companies are discarding Chef. They find the difficulty. They find that it is getting costlier to maintain this particular architecture, whereas Ansible is easier to maintain and it is very cost effective. Since it uses SSH, it can easily connect to the clients having the SSH keys. We will see that in the demo. How easy to connect. Simplifying though the whole process, client details like hostname and IP addresses, SSH ports, and stored like inventory files. So inventory file is a very important component of Ansible, you know. So all these connectivity informations are available to Ansible through the inventory files. Once you have created an inventory file and populated it, Ansible can use it. Simple. So Ansible is an open source configuration management tool. Why open source? It is because you do not need to pay a single cent to learn this particular tool and you can use this particular tool. There is no license fees. There is no license fees to procure. Okay. Use for configuration management that we have already learned can solve a wide range of automation challenges. Yes, yes, yes. It is very important. All the lifecycle challenges for automation can be resolved using Ansible as a tool. Written by Michael Dehan. Michael Dehan is the person who has invented Ansible. And no need. Okay. Now Ansible was acquired by Red Hat in 2000 because of the popularity. You know, Red Hat is one of the leading Linux platforms. So Red Hat understood the importance of Ansible. So Ansible was taken over by Red Hat. So if I ask you, who is the owner of Ansible now? Not Ansible. Who is the owner of Ansible software? Ansible tool? Red Hat. Red Hat is the owner. Now in 2019, something happened. Great thing happened in the software world. Why? IBM acquired Red Hat. Because IBM had their IBM Cloud, but IBM Cloud was not getting a boost. It was lacking the platform. It was providing the software services, but it was not getting the platform services. So it acquired Red Hat was always popular. So it had acquired Red Hat. So entire thing, that cloud that it was manifesting over as a competitor with big houses like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. IBM was lagging behind in that competition. But once in 2019 it had acquired Red Hat. Red Hat agreed to merge with IBM. Then what happened? IBM shoot up as a cloud provider. The market value of IBM as a cloud provider rose just with one strategy of getting Red Hat. And not only getting Red Hat, it has got Ansible along with that, because in 2015, Red Hat had already acquired or merged Ansible with it. So can you see the importance of learning Ansible, or understanding why industry has got Ansible? Why industry has adopted Ansible as a DevOps tool in their DevOps lifecycle, in their project lifecycle. DevOps and Agile are same. Agile is a project management methodology, whereas DevOps is what implements this Agile methodology. That is what we have discussed in our first session. Okay. Therefore, if I say that my project-sized company has to be successful, I need to implement DevOps for automation. Okay. And this tool, this Ansible, is one of the most important tools in that process. Okay. Any question? Why the importance of Ansible? We have already discussed that. Can you see? This is from 2020. Now already almost like 4 years have passed, and the position of chef, which is the red line, has gone down. Means Ansible, the position of Ansible has gone up quite a bit in this 4 years. The Puppet, Salt, Chef, they are all, the Chef is still in the competition, but Puppet and Salt, they are lying in the very bottom in the competition. So that is why we are learning, and in our DevOps course, main course, we have adopted this particular tool for our students to learn. Any question? So the architecture is very simple, it's a simplified view. I can just try to elaborate on that. Okay. When you say this is, you are writing an Ansible playbook. A playbook is like your instruction manual or instruction booklet or a book, and that is called a playbook. You write Ansible script over here, and that scripts are all provided by Ansible. You just have to copy and paste and create a playbook. That's all. You include the modules. You include the modules in this playbook. Okay. Modules in this playbook, and your Ansible playbook will access the inventory. Now, can anybody tell me, just now we have discussed what is the purpose of inventory? The users are going to access, or basically the DevOps guys who have created those playbook are going to implement or execute this Ansible playbook, which will in turn access the modules, access the inventory. Why we have to access the inventory? Without the inventory, how will I reach these hosts? These are the hosts. Host number 1, 2, 3. It can be n number of hosts. N number of hosts. Okay. So I have only one master server. This is the master server on which Ansible has been installed. And with Ansible comes the modules. We will configure the inventory. Inventory will make an API call. Through this, our playbook will access the inventory, understand which host it has to connect, and do the job, configuration job. So it will make an API call. it will also use the plugins. It will also use the plugins, and the plugins will access the network to reach the hosts. So these are these API calls, these APIs, these plugins, these modules, and of course the inventory. These are all available when we install Ansible over onto our main server or the master server. Is that clear? And how do you access your host? It is, you will write simple playbook. I am saying simple, the playbook can go very complex. That's why we organize the playbook. See, the hierarchy is you write the playbook. Playbook will organize the tasks. Tasks are the job tasks. What are the tasks that you want to do? There can be multiple tasks. Task 1, task 2, task 3. Okay. So all this will be called to the playbook. The task will call the modules. It can call one module or hundreds of modules. Module. It will call the modules, various modules. Or it will call the handler. It will call the notify. Now these are, we are going to learn in details in our main course. But anyway, the structure is, so a playbook you have written to simplify the tasks. Otherwise, you are going to write the task one after the other. There is no one to control it. So you will create a playbook which can call multiple playbooks, multiple plays. So a playbook can have play. So maybe a play 1 will call task 1 and task 2. And there is play 2. Play 2 can call task 3. So a playbook having 2 plays, having multiple tasks called from the various plays, and the tasks in turn will call the modules and the inventory and whatever it is. Therefore, to connect to the host and do the configuration job over the host. But again, the playbook can go very complex. You can have 2 plays or you can have n number of plays. Play n. And so can you believe how many tasks you can? So it can go very complex. You start with a simple playbook, then you can keep on expanding it, enhancing it to a very complex one. Now, this complexity is always in life. I always like to make my life simple. So I will break down this complexity through Ansible roles. So through the roles, I will organize the playbook to break down the complexity of the playbook into much easier way. So a playbook, I will not have so many plays. I will break down, I will have roles, many roles called from one playbook. And those roles now will cater to all the tasks, modules and everything. So I have taken off the load from the playbook. I have created small roles to cater to each individual. So I have modularized. You know, if you are a developer, you will always try to modularize your job in hand. You do not write the entire code in one single file, do you? No. Your file can grow up to 1,000 lines. If you write a code of 1,000 lines, it is not a good programming. I will suggest that if you can break them into say 50 lines per file, which will be easy to maintain, manage, and monitor. Because if there is some problem, some defect, it will be very difficult to debug 1,000-line code. But if some defect happens in this file, in this particular program, in this particular code file, it will be easier to debug 50 lines rather than debug 1,000 lines, isn't it? Do you agree? This is called modularization. You break down the main file or the main problem into smaller problems. You modularize the entire solution. Okay, that is what you do with the roles. So the structure is you be on the master server, create a playbook. Playbook will in turn call the inventories. And through the inventory, you will end up into your hosts where and you will deploy the modules like so many jobs, tasks. You will deploy it over onto this servers and through the SSH, and you have to have the Python over that, and that will be when the SSH will try to make a connection over to the host. It will give a feedback to Ansible saying that whether this particular host is having already Python installed or not. If Python is not there, the further activity will be just truncated or it will be just aborted. So this is the first alarm that rings whenever you try to connect. But if you ensure that each of these nodes or hosts have Python, the connection will be seamless. Gathering of the fact that Python is there will be seamless, and you can deploy those modules through your playbook. Any question? Any question? Sitting in one place, you are basically, let's say you are sitting in US office and this server is in India. This server is in Japan. This node is in Australia. Okay. And you want to do some installation of maybe Java. You want to install Java or any software from sitting over here, just writing a playbook. You do this and you will end up installing Java on each of these terminals or each of this host. Isn't it quite nice? And before that, you have used Terraform to create these platforms, these nodes scattered all over the world, part of your company. So after Terraform has done its job of creating the nodes, rather provisioning, better to say provisioning of those nodes over onto the various, these are all on the cloud, but you have created them into various regions and wherever you want it. Okay, and after that, in one shot, in one playbook, you were being able to deploy all the necessary softwares that you want to upgrade or install, or you want to package, you want to do so many things, so many configuration activities over onto those servers. Is that fine? Just you need to write one playbook. Any question you might have? So the same, you will use the inventory. Inventory will help you to, because that inventory file will have a list of hosts. I will show you in the practical demonstration. And those are the hosts where your playbook tasks will be operated, will be deployed. You will write playbook. That is one of the components of Ansible. Okay, where you will describe the tasks to be executed. You will write in a very simple language provided by Ansible. Playbooks are like instruction manuals. As I told you, you say what you want to do. Whether you want to install Java, whether you want to install Apache Web Server, or an application server, or you want to upgrade the version, or you want to remove some software, or you want to read some configuration into your, into your monitoring. You are monitoring something and you want to check whether this is available or not. If not, then you install it. So all these configuration activities are like instruction manuals that you put into your playbook. Okay. Now, as I told you, the modules are like tools, small tools within the Ansible tool. Tools means some programming modules. So it is already inbuilt for you. Like you want to move a file from your source to the destination, or you want to copy a file from your source to the destination. Destination means the host. Okay. So you build that particular file into your master server, and then you copy into hundreds of the hosts in one shot. So you will take the help of a copy module. So the module name is copy. There are hundreds, as I told you, there are more than 750 modules, out of which one is copy. Other one is, Linux. So you have the Red Hat Yum package module, or you have used Ubuntu. So the package manager apt comes as a module. So if you are installing some softwares over a Linux server, which is an Ubuntu server, so the host is an Ubuntu server, you want to use the app module to install, upgrade, or remove. These are the things that you can do with a package manager called apt, upgrade or remove. You can do this much. Okay, so you will use the app module. You do not have to write the raw code. So the code is like that whenever you are doing raw. So you can give a sudo apt install. When you are doing it over the Ubuntu, you are using an app package module, okay, package manager, and you are installing Apache. So you are saying Apache 2 -y. So you are installing a software called Apache over into this server directly using a raw command, a CLI command of Linux over Ubuntu. But this thing, you can do it over Ansible. Just use the app module. You do not have to write this command. This command will be internally converted through Ansible. So app module knows what it needs to do. You have to give just the parameters because it's a YAML file. You will give the parameters, whether what is the state. So you will say the state is Apache 2, and you can give it latest version of Apache 2 you want to install. So your app module, you will say apt : under that is state, and whatever update cache, you will say yes. So it will update the repository. So these are not programming language. These are things that are coming. You have to know it. That's all. Very, very simple. If you know it, this becomes very simple. So configuration and the host files, you have understood. I think it can control the resources like services, packages, etc. There are almost like over 750 core modules. It will also allow you to do your custom module. You can create your own module if you have something which is not catered by 750. But I do not think you can think of anything which is outside these 750 core modules. So you do not never need to create your custom module mostly. So where are your configuration and the host files? It is under the Ansible host. So when we demo, I will show you this is the inventory file where you will keep your the destination IP address. So the host IP address will be stored over into this file because Ansible needs to access, because Ansible needs to know where it has to deploy the job, in which server. So that server IP address has to be mentioned somewhere, and that is called the host file. That is the inventory file. And if you need to have your own inventory file, let's say you, instead of using the default, you have an inventory file by the name inventory.ini, then you have to mention your host file or the inventory file within the Ansible configuration file. Okay, you will have your customized inventory file. You have to mention where it is there, where and what is the name of the inventory file, because you are not going to use this as the default. Is it getting very difficult for you to understand? I'm not getting any questions. So shall I assume that it is you are not being able to understand? Or it is very simple, that it is very natural, therefore you have no questions. So it is a YAML file. The Ansible playbook that you write is a very, it has a YAML format. There is no scope for me to let you know what is a YAML. That is out of scope right now, because it's a very, very interesting and the most advanced format of writing your scripts in a predefined template called YAML. And Ansible playbooks are written in YAML format. Very, very simple. The earlier we used to write all those transaction details in XML files. XML was the only format available for interchange of information over the internet. That was the only format available earlier days. So through this, you will interchange or exchange the data. Data means information over the internet in a very secured way. In a secured way. Now you have YAML. Instead of XML, you have YAML. Yet another markup language. Okay, and that language is based on JSON. JSON is like JavaScript object notation. It is nothing but a key colon value pair. Key is nothing but a variable which will refer to the value. So the value is stored into this key, into this variable. So you will just refer to the key to get access to the value. It is as simple as that. So YAML is nothing but, let's say my name is Debashish Pal. Okay, so can you write a JSON format of my name? I'm not talking about XML. XML will need a lot of tags. Difficult. It's a very complex type of a format. So it is not very much popular with the developers or anyone using XML for an interchange of information. So they have resorted to YAML format, and it's like you are transferring my name or interchanging an information, that exchange of information over the internet, like my name. You are passing that information from one point to the other point. Okay, So how will you pass that information over the net in a JSON format? Let's say the main key is name, and there is an indentation, that is you leave two places. There is a sub key. This is the main key, and the sub key is the first name. First may be underscore name, or whatever the camel case. Colon, you give the first name is the value Debashish. So within quotes Debashish. Then you say middle name. Middle name. I do not have a middle name. So what you can do? You can make a null entry. Then the last name. See, it is the key and this is the value. And between that, there is a colon. So key value. This is the main key. These are the sub keys. These are the properties of the main key. So the last name is PAL. So this is the JSON format that I can pass my information. And where do you have to keep this? You have to keep this in a file with an extension called YAML. That's all. Did you understand that? So I will also give the same sort of instructions over into an Ansible playbook, which is in YAML format using the JSON format. Is there any question? In a very short way, I have explained the term YAML and JSON. JavaScript object notation. These are objects. So this key is an object. In this object, you have this particular reference to this value. So the key first name will have a value called Debashish. When you access the name and within that name, the first name, then you will get the value called Debashish. That is how you exchange the information over the internet in a YAML format. So why I'm saying internet? Because you are writing this is some code, some scripts that is happening in a YAML format with a JSON type of notation that you do, and then you pass that information. You make an API call. The API call is nothing but you are making a call from one system to the other system. Okay, to avail some resources or to manipulate some resources. You make an API call. An API call travels over the internet. So to make your data safe, you have to give in a particular format, and that format is the JSON format over a YAML file. Are you getting me? So whatever API calls that you are making, that is, you are calling a module called copy or APT. You give the instructions as a key value pair over this playbook. Any question? Are there any guys or everyone has left? I'm not sure because I'm not being able to see it. Sorry, is there any question? I just broke off and wanted to understand if there are any questions, because don't worry, it is up to us to extend our sessions. If there is a paucity of time, we can avail the next weekend to expand our knowledge. There is no time frame, there is no time limit, because the whole purpose is to make you aware of something, which is whether this forms part of your goal, whether the academic goal that you want to achieve or the learning that whether this falls into your learning path, learning goal. Okay. If you find it too difficult and if this is not the one that you are actually interested in, then definitely there is no point. But at least you have to know for that to open up that gate of whether you are fine with this particular domain. That is our purpose. That is the scope of why we take this weekend sessions very, very seriously. Even there is one person with some interest, and we are there for you to help you. No need to worry whether I have completed my session of Ansible today. I will carry on tomorrow or basically the next weekend. Is that clear? So any questions? Somebody, Mr. Menon, are you asking a question? I think that will be a difficult question for me.
No, I'm not asking. You asked like if anyone is there, so I raised my hand.
Okay. So let me go back. I do not have much time, so I will try to compile within 10 minutes, but I will extend because I have to do the demo. Without a demo, I don't believe there is any utility of this particular knowledge. Okay, so that demo and that whatever the slides will be left today, I will carry on over in the next week. But let's see how much we can go ahead with. So this is the structure of a playbook. You see, the playbook can have multiple plays, and each play can have multiple tasks, and each task can have multiple modules or notify or a handler, as we have described earlier. So this is sort of an organization. You have organized your tasks into a playbook such that it is easier. So if there is some failure into this task, I will know that this was actually from this play, from this playbook. There can be multiple playbooks running in the system. Okay, but this task has failed. So I will know because this task is related to this play and this play is related to this playbook. So I will know which file has failed. This is the way you organize. Okay. We want to create a playbook with 2 plays and 2 tasks and the following tasks. Let me. Yeah. So we have come inside a playbook. Inside a playbook. I will just take some time for from you to describe what we are trying to achieve. We are writing a playbook. Do you think that this is a programming file? Are you writing any programming are you writing in shell script, which is the simplest one? Not even shell script. Leave aside Java, Python and all those things. They are much more structured. They have a lot of, steps. If you want to write a single code of action, you have to write, say, around 30 or 40 lines to just accomplish one simple print. You want to print a single line of something, hello world from Java. So it is not, you cannot write a single line. You have to write at least 20 to 30 lines to follow the structure. But do you see there is any structure? No, it is simply you are giving in sequence. You are saying that my name. So this is the instruction that you give a dash, 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 3 dashes. It is a symbol to say that you are writing multiple segments of a YAML file. Multiple segments. So it can be one single YAML structure, or there can be multiple YAML structure within a single file. So if you have a single or multiple, you can start, by convention is a good practice to start with a dash, dash, dash to indicate that it's a YAML file with multiple segments. And you are defining with a hash. Hash means there is a comment. This is a simple playbook with a single play. So we are having only one play. Like in our diagram, a playbook can have one play. There is no problem. But a playbook can have multiple plays. So here, let's see what is inside a playbook with a single play or a simple play. So you are defining the name of the playbook, name of the play, and the hosts. These are the hosts. So you cannot mention host. You cannot say. You cannot say. You cannot say this is the key for the JSON. You cannot say host. You have to mention hosts because that is the keyword. That is the key. So this entire structure, this entire thing is a JSON way of indicating your data. You are mentioning the data as a JSON format, in a JSON format, in a YAML template. This is a YAML file because there is a certain indentation that you have to follow. So these are the various keys that should come in the same level. These are the keys. And these are the values. This is also a key. So whichever I marked with a violet ink is a key. And whichever I'm marking with a blue tick is a value. This is a value. This is a multiple value. Okay, multiple value. So what we are doing here is, if I try to understand this, is we are saying what is the name of the play? The name of the play is a simple play. This play will be displayed when we execute this playbook. We will see the next day. Okay, and the host means which is the server or which is the host that you are going to connect to. This information, can anybody tell me where this information is coming from? From which file? There is some file where I have mentioned this with some IP address. What is that file that my playbook will try to access? What is that file called? Where I have that IP address information, where it has to connect as a host to deploy some job or to deploy do some tasks. This is coming from anybody? This is coming from which file? Will I say this is module? No. Will I say this is coming from the inventory file, whether it's a host file or some other customized inventory name? This is the inventory file. So this information is stored in inventory file. So in the inventory file, we will have this, the name of that server which you want to connect with, along with the IP address. We will see that. Is that clear? The user is the key. And what is the user? The user is some remote user. You may name it some Ubuntu or root. Some user that other Linux user that you have created. Become, yes, you will take a role. You will take the role of whatever the policy has been assigned with Ubuntu has been, you will become that. Become method. So if you are a user having a pseudo privilege, you will become method. You will use that particular privilege. So that remote user can also become a user root with a pseudo privilege. So you are making all these instructions. You are giving these instructions to Ansible. So whenever you are connecting to this particular host, you are connecting with a user, and that user can be a remote user by the name Ubuntu or whatever, and that is having, it can be Devashish as well. If Devashish user has been already created onto this particular host. And you can, if you have already been created with a pseudo privilege, you will use that method. And with that pseudo privilege, you will be assuming a role. You can become a root user. That means you are a super user. And that is my configuration. That is what I want to do. And what is the task? The name of the task is the first task. What is the service? Service. So can anybody tell me what is this? What is this? What are you calling this? Like you have said that this is the inventory. Then what is this? You are calling a what is this? Anyone? Give it a wild try. This is nothing but you are trying to install a software called HTTPD, which is nothing but Apache. Okay. And enabled equal to true means your service will create this HTTPD or install this particular software, which is Apache, and enable it. And enable it. Enable it means next time the server is booted, the server will automatically run the Apache web server. You do not need to again and again restart it or start it. So the second task is another task. What you are doing? You are enabling, you are going for SSHD. So that is a service. That is a service which is making that you are making this service enabled. That means always you are making it run. So this now my question was, you are giving this key and value. That's all. What is this service about? What is this service? What is this called in Ansible terms? If instead of service, if I had given apt and then say name equal to HTTPD. So HTTPD because we are using a server which is the remote, this manage host example. This is a Red Hat server, let's say. So a Red Hat server will understand HTTPD as an Apache. And we will say state latest. So what does this mean? This means I'm trying to use the apt something and to install Apache server with the latest version. So what is this apt? What is that I'm calling? Anyone? That is my last question for today. Or this service? What is this called? These are nothing but called module. You are calling a apt module. You are calling a service module. You are calling a service module. There could have been a command module. Command. CMAND. This is nothing but a shell script. So in that you could have executed a shell command like echo welcome to Ansible. So simple echo command of shell. So what is this command? Command is nothing but a module. Command is nothing but a module. With this help of module, you are calling Ansible to call this module, and with that module, you are command module, you are executing a shell script called or shell command called echo welcome to Ansible. So welcome to Ansible will be printed on the console. Are you getting me? The essence. Any question? I will stop the session today over here. Okay. And we will continue from the next this one. So that's fine. I will go back and stop my camera. Stop sharing the screen and stopping the recording.
So thank you, Mr. Devashish, for today's call.
Thank you. Thank
So
you.
before we wrap up, guys, if you have any question, feel free to ask. We are at the very end of today's session, and I think many of you guys joined first time today's session. Feel free to ask any question if it is a DevOps, cybersecurity, AI, about our free classes or about our job ready paid classes. We are happy to answer those questions. I think everyone have their question well answered before. So thank you everyone. See you next weekend. And our next cybersecurity and DevOps classes, two different job ready training is going to start from next Friday. Both will be the evening batch. Morning batch is going to start in next month. So if you are interested, feel free to ping. We are going to update all of our upcoming events in the groups and our another free sessions. And it will be a very interesting and very powerful. That is a free AI internship program that I think that will consist of 4 or 5 week end, uh, most probably Friday evening, because that is the only availability we have. So feel free to ping us, and we are going to update very soon about those free classes and paid classes in the group. Okay then, uh, take care and have a thank you, Mr. Devashish.
Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you, Mr. Devashish. Mr. Mena.
Yeah. Yes.